Yeah, I had some technical difficulties even getting it going. Cost. But needed. Yeah. I'm surprised Jody lived as long as she did that bathroom up here. Sad. Oh, it's horrendous. Yeah, but only reason I thought that way out. 10 years, nothing's changed. And that was about COVID. And then and be like, no. It was just get started. Yeah, it's there is. Like crap. If you get 10 years on it, no, it's a blessing. Does anybody else need to sign in? Your number and your name, and then just pass this to the guy in the face.
It's as far as the drain the washer, so like for so they give me a washer right away. That's the other thing we started by there will not be a perfect in our whole done. All it's be lambda plus. It's the three. You know what?
Yeah, I don't think Kelly's gonna turn on the air.
It's going out short. I wouldn't plan on that Brian anymore. It's open water season, but. I sent Jay the text message. Thomas drug violence. Funny things that he's. How's that? The same phone, like I think he said. I asked him. 60 right? It's great. It's a 601 inside.
Everybody signed in? Okay.
And he's nice. It's just a real reality. Numbers came back on. Should be working with this. I shoot for sales. Anytime I made stuff with it for anything, do you think it's a decision? I'm sure some people say that is little things like that. There you go. When the department's plan their own thing, they're doing like. That was really a good picture.
And one when it shows all their shit about there going there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that one. The UWS, I think it was UWSP.
That's a really good picture. Historical.
Yeah, I think so. I have that impression of one of this one.
Site. Right.
That was all the people from Ames. Falls Point.
Sitting there.
They
Are you guys okay with that? Pretty good, all right.
Yeah, they give people 3 days. Three to 4 days in advance. They
Right there.
and they start flooding. They said you need to leave. You know, back there, stuff. They're like, why are they doing this? Like, they're building the river here. They're like, this is their homesteads. And they start coming in logging. So they did as far as high up as they could reach. They just locked everything up and took it all over. Took it all over. Yeah, there was one.
They're anonymous.
Yeah.
There's no
7 residencies, different residencies out here, and they actually called me. And the one that the Bennett farm was the last one, because they had land and. Actually, that silo was still there. I think that Jerry's mansion there.
No. They didn't even need to go.
That place.
Oh, inside, it's 16 bedrooms.
So there's one, Castle Rock, I think it's just south of Pine Bowl. I wanna say it's like Fort Head. Somewhere around 8-9 bath, massive. And I think, I'm pretty sure the pool's like 20 by 60, big old pool.
Yeah, this one's got a great big movie theater
Yeah,
inside.
yep, movie theater downstairs, it's got like 2 basements in it. Awful lot of.
How'd you like to get us?
Yeah, but Jerry had
There's 3 teams.
supposedly he's got like places like that all over. He's got one in Michigan.
Let's get Mark.
They're all.
You've been in by.
No, some house. And there's supposed to be another big thing going. Someone other big thing, we'll bring like a foot already in here. And so on the 16th.
I remember teaching you. iPhone 16E. It's still the slow next day. Yeah, there's others in some. So vice versa.
Yeah.
Here.
No, he.
That's all was. Yeah. I don't know how to get it. It used one. Mistake is either. Well, but sometimes that's not a good thing. The ones that I did, all of it said. I didn't care if you very sad. That's why I do. Agents to be my forget. I got still in big stuff. I did really good. Should I can't say 20
So somebody else is. I'm pretty sure this one qualified for the same kind of, I think, to get your stress test. Sorry, that was stupid.
Signed in.
But my buddy said they were at once over there. Cameo, Cameo still out by the bar.
And Sierra.
Just bad stuff. Marty stopped. So.
There's 5 days, 6 days and stuff.
Oh.
Just got it down. 35. It was last year. 16 probably. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no service.
People ain't from church, but I'm not sick of them down my house.
Anything to drink?
Where did that sign?
Yeah, look, they're signing in my car, I guess.
Zero, 13 gallon. No, they do.
I think they got it on the TV. There's one TV that was on that's working. We give you to put your pad up against and it's really red.
It's open to kids.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah, that's 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, so one flip like that.
Spent 4 days before it opened. Like it's like, I come home and it's great. It works basically. It's 100-degree temperatures. 2 hours.
16 blocks to run.
I'm just gonna drink it all. You can't always get it down. You're a whole bunch. So then I'll leave it to one side. So much better watch our brains. Put all and everybody got shut down. And it's food everyone had it. And then the wax. Flats. But they just. I don't know. First one is still. I don't know. I'm sorry. Happy. I did. On a rocket, go just 30 miles. We drove. He doesn't take much.
You got early on says, you mean, you're.
Freshwater.
That's how they sell it. Or you ball the slash here and marker there.
It's like that. Pretty sure I don't have that picture from the year we were.
I really want it. And then only my uncle. Is this. He part from Fast Private, right? And we went out. And full of times. Where we've been pushing his. To get on the. Walk. He pushed him. It's nice fishing.
They say a few.
And don't go wrong. And we'll still challenge him. But Absolutely. Morning, everyone. Great to see a lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces. We got a panel of experts here again. Sam Ward, Thomas Drosty, Brandon Siebert, Jesse Qualley, and this guy. But Dano's gonna MC the event here today, so thanks for coming.
So first and foremost, Dan, thank you for taking care of the AV equipment and the videoing and the
Well,
streaming.
Thank you very much for having me. Welcome everybody. Like Joe said, we got a lot of really great information for all of you. Just a quick thing, some of you might be regulars here, and so we're relying on the Wi-Fi to make sure that the stream gets into the other room, and then also so people can tune in like from their home if they couldn't make it today. So if you are a regular here and you do your phone automatically hooks to the Wi-Fi, if you could do me a favor and turn that off, and then that way we can make sure that we're not like wrecking and crashing the stream. That would really help to make sure things go smoothly.
We do it right now.
Good job.
Yeah.
We're not gonna waste too much time and get right into it. So why don't we start off with each one of these guys has quite a bit of experience on this body of water, and so we'll go through and have them introduce who they are and how long they've been working here and what they love to do. So we'll start with Sam.
Hi, my name's Sam Warden with Guy Price Guide Service. I'm gonna go over drop shotting, or I'm sorry, dead sticking, a little bit of drop shotting. I think Thomas has a drop shot guide today too, so I'll end with that, let him go into that. I do also want to start with thanking Joe for putting this together and having us here every year, as well as Dan for putting all of his time and effort into getting this out to the people that can't be here, especially. One thing Joe asked me to kind of go over again, this seminar, we did it in the winter seminar, is kind of lake etiquette and boat etiquette, open water. Everybody fishes some of the same spots at different times on open water. Same with ice. I think we talked about it a little bit last spring, casting distance. You'll see some of us pull up close to each other and fish. If you fished with me, we may fish close together sometimes. I always just try to give people enough space to cast and kind of go from there. One of the things I really want to go over too is at the docks. You get a handful of busy weekends, especially at the county park. We talked about kind of parking our boats and just putting chairs there and backing boats in for people. And so if anybody's interested, let us know. But no, one thing I was taught years ago, and this makes perfect sense. It was actually, they used to teach it in boater safety. I don't know if they still do. Boats leaving the water usually have right away. Every time a boat leaves the water, it opens up a parking spot in the water. So kind of keep that in mind when you see boats coming in on a busy weekend and you're trying to go out, let them get out, because then you're gonna have a spot to park. Kind of makes sense. So straight into dead sticks. I'm trying something a little bit new this year. I've actually went to a bait feeder reels on my dead sticks. I don't know if anybody's familiar with bait feeders, but I'll go over that first before I go into how I rig them. But once you're set at whatever depth you want, they have a separate trigger on them. Once that's flipped, that line can just free spool out. So a fish can take that. In the past, I have not used those, and I've always liked my fish on a dead stick to load that rod up. And then when it's pulled out of the rod holder, you just start reeling. You don't really need to do an extra hook set with it. What we kind of found at the end of this last season, and it's actually another guy here at the table that I was fishing with when we found that. He was taking his reels and he does use bait feeders on a lot of his ice stuff, and a lot of us have. But he was taking his reels and like cranking the drag all the way down, because anytime the fish would feel any type of resistance, they drop.
Open it all the way up.
Yep, they would drop the bait. And, most of the season, that's not our case, but there's times when they're that finicky that if they feel something, they will drop. The way I rig my dead sticks is always with some type of slip weight. I'm a bullet weight or, thinking like that. I go braid to a swivel to a mono leader normally out here. And then 90% of the time, I'm always using a bigger gold Aberdeen hook, thin wire hook. When that goes down through the water, we've got so much wood out here. I'm sure everybody's lost plenty of tackle, plenty of baits, everything like that. The thin hooks, a lot of times, especially with the braid, if you just kind of give that even pressure, that'll come out. You can reset it real quick and get back down in the water without having to retie. Like I said, 90% of the time. There is about 10% of the time where we find that they want a colored hook. So we will tie those on. Thing with a lot of your colored hooks, a lot of them are stainless steel hooks. As soon as that hooks into something, you can wave goodbye to that whole rig. You're going to have to retie. Plus the smaller, the colored hooks tend to be a little bit smaller. The fish are really eaten and they're taking it way down. It'll be a little bit harder to get out of them. These are a little bit easier. With setting a dead stick, a lot of people think you're taking it over the side, putting that weight all the way down on the bottom. I do not do that, especially a lot of the times. Our fish are eating bigger baits, whether it be the chubs or the walleye suckers. If you ever put a walleye sucker in shallower water and you kind of watch what it does, if they get down to the sand, they're going to lay themselves right on that sand and they're not going to move. If you keep your baits up, and you got to find what distance that is that the fish want. And I use my live scope more for that than I do pitching and casting and whatever, just so I can see around my boat where everybody's dead stick is at while they're casting or vertical jigging or whatever. I want to see where that bait is and make sure they're not sitting on the bottom or it's not sitting in a tree and that bait's not moving. If you keep the bigger baits, if you keep them up off the bottom, a lot of times they'll sit there and they'll dig. So it kind of works like an attractant. Got other people on the boat and they're casting or vertical jigging or whatever. You can kind of see it on your sides or on your live screen. That'll bring fish into the boat. So you may catch them on the dead stick, you may catch them on the jig. But that works really well for that. Drop shotting, I'll just barely get into that. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna let you okay taking that.
Go for it. Go for it. 5 other rods besides that one.
Drop shotting kind of started out years ago as a bass technique. It's kind of worked its way into the walleye world and panfish and everything else. There's all kinds of YouTube videos out there as far as how to tie a drop shot hook on. There's different ways. Whatever way works for you is the best way. I tie an actual drop shot knot. We don't advise this, but when you get it all set, you put it in your mouth, pull it tight, straight. You can also put it on the ledge of the boat.
I use the windshield on my boat.
Yep. But when you get that,
Mistake, you only have to make one time.
when you get that hook on there though, if that hook is not sitting perfectly straight out to the side, you know you've tied something wrong. Just go ahead and give yourself a retie. There's all different kinds of drop shot weights on the market. You can also use split shots. Some people use tie a bell sinker on. I like the ones that have the little clamp on it. That way you can set it exactly where you want it on the line and then just pull it tight and it'll stay there. Again, if you're finding that the fish are reacting a little differently, sometimes they want that bait sitting about 12 inches off the bottom. Sometimes they want it 18 or even 2 feet. These type of weights make that really easy to adjust that. You can use live bait, which is what we are generally doing. I have cut some on plastics, but generally we're using minnows on these. One of the nice things about these is when you find that height that they wanted off the bottom, you know if you've got your stuff set there, that no matter who's holding that rod, they're at that right height. There is times where we find that they do want them tail hooked. I have found when I tail hook a minnow, I tend to exactly what I'm saying, it's tail hook. And I watch other people on the boat to make sure that they're doing it the way that the fish are gonna bite. A lot of people, when they say tail hook, they're putting it by the dorsal fin, and that's kind of, I find especially on a drop shot, that's kind of a funny swimming action, and it doesn't get hit as much. If you go between that dorsal fin and the tail, it looks like a wounded big fish, which is what it is.
Put that minnow upside down.
Yep, sometimes flipping the minnow upside down. Play with it. Find what they want. And then it's pretty rare that I will do the same thing on a dead stick. But if I find that they're hitting this, I might change one or two of my dead sticks around and see if it's gonna change the bite. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. That's about it.
Are you using a circle hook?
Sometimes I am, but there's also drop shot hooks.
There's spin shot hooks too, where it's got a swivel in between the hook. You just tie your lead there and then your sinker lead, so just like your barrel for your little ones.
VMC got
Yeah, VMC one.
They work a lot better with those spin shot ones, work a lot better if you're fishing a little more vertical. But if you're casting with it and you're fishing really slow, what tends to happen is instead of the bait staying away from you up like this as you're working it, and you stop for a second, hold it there, that bait will swing back down because of the angle of your line. So now your plastic or your minnow is hanging back down the other way. They work really good for more vertical presentations, or if you're working a lot faster, or like you're using small plastics like flukes that may float a little more neutrally buoyant. Those work better with those spin shots because it keeps it upright and trailing behind it.
They don't get twisted up as
Right,
much either.
Right.
And a big thing with dead sticks, going back to those for just a second. I'm somebody that's very avid about always putting dead sticks in the water. My boat stops. Even if we're not on a bite where we're getting a lot out of dead sticks, it's another chance. But it can also tell me what they're chasing, because if I got a few of those in the water, I'll change bait sizes, do that kind of stuff. And that's what I kind of use my drop shots for as well. Once I figure out what they're kind of hitting, I'll just kind of switch stuff over to that and go from there.
I'm the complete opposite. I just burn gas.
I called him the other day and I'm like, slow down, speed racer. Holy cow.
Corner at 35.
But you can definitely tell those how they want to eat though, because there's days if you're catching them on jigs,
Yep.
they don't want dead sticks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or there's days where that's all they just want something sitting there in front of them, not even moving it, and they won't even touch a jig.
And I'm a big time believer that, the more stuff that you have out there that's different, if you are trying to figure out what's happening today, it gives you more chances of figuring it out.
That's a good little segue because I'm Thomas from Team Walleye Guys Guide Service. I've been fishing out here for about 30 years now, guiding for my 6th or 7th year. I started fishing the river really with my grandpa, with my dad, going down by Wakely's, going up by the islands offshore. I didn't really even start fishing the lake itself till I was maybe 19, 20 years old, so I could afford my own boat because dad and grandpa, we didn't ever bring boats over here. I actually started fishing the river a lot with Jesse, so I kind of learned how to fish the river in the spring.
Remember your first boat?
Yeah, I caught a lot of fish out of that boat. But, no, he was Dan was talking about having different things, throwing different things out there to find out what they want. Well, that's kind of a good segue into what I want to talk about is having a bunch of different rods rigged up and having those rods ready for different applications, different things. I don't put a lot of dead sticks out. I do. I make my money. I'm mainly on casting bites. That's not to say I'm not going to put planer boards out and troll once in a while, or I'm not going to put dead sticks out because there's some days where moving jig or something bright and gaudy hanging in the water is just not going to get them. So sometimes you can have to have a couple of dead sticks out. And if I'm fishing a tournament out here, be damned if I'm not going to have a dead stick or some slip offers out. But the rod that I use the most and that I give most of my clients, especially on the lake, and there's a little difference. I still use this stuff in the river, but when you get a lot of current, I switch stuff up. I'll tell you why. So most of the time out here, 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce jigs, once in a while a 3/16 ounce jig, but 1/4 ounce jig most of the time is what I'm using out here. I'm using a 6'6" medium light. Not all medium light rods are created equal. If you were to grab one of Sammy's, I don't know what he's got sitting there, but if you grab the by the numbers, by the name equal from one of my rods over here, it's probably going to feel a little different. But this is
Extra fast.
nope, this is a 6'6" medium fast action. I've got 10-pound suffix on it with either 8 or 10-pound monofilament leader on it. Sometimes I'll go to 6, sometimes I'll even bump it up to 12 or maybe even 15.
But this is what I use the majority of the time that I'm fishing. The 6.6 works good for fishing smaller finesse baits. I don't like having 7 foot, 7'6", 7'8" rods in the boat. My boat's only 18 feet long. You put 4 people in there with 7.5 foot rods. You've got baits and stuff flipping all over the place.
Sword fight. What's
Yes.
Icon with 6.8 stamp.
The 6, I got one. I got one right there. I'm gonna get to that one too. But this is the one that I use the most. Yeah, there isn't a walleye that I found on this lake or even on Green Bay or anywhere that I've been that I can't fight with a 6.6 medium light. You just have to play with it a little bit more. Now, when you're up in the river and you're dealing with a lot of current, like I was last week when I was up there, this 6.6 wasn't enough when I hooked into a fish that was even 3 pounds, 4 pounds. You could bring them in, but you're fighting that fish an awful long time. It's a lot long, takes a lot longer to bring the fish in. It's a lot more stress on the fish, a lot more stress on all of your gear. That's when I would switch from like a 6.6 medium light to a 6.6 medium. It's a 6.6 medium. It's an Avid. It's the same length. I got basically the same kind of the same reel on it. But this just gives you a little bit more power to bring those fish in. We've all seen it. We've all done it. You know, it's fun to fight fish on light action rods, but you owe it to that fish if you're going to try to release it, especially when you hook it, that you're not trying to take 20 minutes to drag that fish. And I see it up by the dam all the time in the fast current. Guys are up there with 5'6" ultralight rods. Cool, it's fun, and it takes you forever to bring the fish in. It's fun. It's fighting with the rods doubled over. Well, you've just stressed out that 7-pound walleye that's up there to drop eggs. You've just stressed her out, let her go. There's a really good chance that post mortality rate is going to go up. So use the right tool for it. A little bit heavier rod is going to help you out a little bit more.
So when you're switching from a medium light to a medium, are you switching your action as well?
The medium light.
Go from a fast
Yep.
action to
Yes. So
extra fast?
both of these rods are rigged with the same bait. Well, this rod, if I'm going to be throwing a 3/8 ounce jig, you'll even look on your rod. If you look on the rods, like this one will tell me it's 4 to 10 pound test line from 1/8 ounce to 3/8 ounce. That's 3/8 ounce if I'm not dealing with a lot of current. Match the rod or match the rod to the bait that you want to throw. Can I throw a 1/2 ounce bait on this? Absolutely, and I can cast it a mile, but I can't work that rod right because when I go to snap this jig in plastic with a 1/2 ounce jig, I'm just going to take that rod and it's going to bend up too much. You're not getting the right action out of it. The same thing with this 6.6 medium. If I try to put a 16th ounce jig on there, sure, I can cast it out there. I can get it away from the boat. But every time I pop it, I'm making that thing do all kinds of crazy stuff because the rod's staying stiff the entire time.
That's kind of the same thing with using braid and mono too, where you got
Yes.
stretch and no stretch. Where your braid, your jig's gonna pop really fast, and with mono, it's gonna be a little bit more of a slow because you got a lot more bend in your rod.
I keep all my rods, and I know Jesse, you fish a lot more monofilament. There's no right or wrong answer to that. I like braid. He might like mono. The next person might like using fluorocarbon. The reason I leave everything the same on almost every one of my rods, especially my walleye rods, having 10-pound braid on there, is that's one less thing that if I'm doing something or somebody's doing something in the boat and I try to duplicate it, it's really hard to duplicate it. If he's got 6-pound mono and I got 10-pound braid and he's got a medium rod and I got a medium light, trying to duplicate that snapping action because there's stretch in the line. There's the rod is bending a little bit differently. So if I move the rod, if I go to snap this rod, snap this jig, and I move the rod just like this with a 6.6 medium, and he does it with a medium light, the jig is doing something different on the other end. Brandon and I ran into this. I had him in my boat, or we were in your boat, remember, 2 years ago, and you had a 7'3" or 7'2",
7.2.
and I had a 6'6". If you were to watch it from the side or standing in the front of the boat watching us work the rods, it looked exactly the same, but it was not the same. He wasn't getting bit at all, and it took me a little bit to convince him, Brandon, you need to shorten your rod because your jig stroke is just way too long. He shortened his rod. We had basically the same reel, the same size reel, so we're picking up a similar line every time we reel in your slack after every time he snapped it. But he finally switched over to a shorter rod, and lo and behold, he started to catch fish.
Yep.
Just that little bit of a difference on there, that how far you were moving that rod.
Isolate those variables.
Because you'll have people in the boat, one will be just slamming them. And you're like, man, what are they, and you're like, oh, you got braid on, or you got this on, or
Yep.
even your leads too.
The leaders, yes.
Like if you're running braid and you break off the short, even with drop shots, the closer or drop shot or a dead stick, the closer your sinker, I think that spooks some fish. You got to have at least a 24 inch lead on there. A lot of times that's just
A
little
little bit of
things
a
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Especially when you're running on big chubs and suckers. If your sinker's too close and you're getting hammered on the other one, you pull up your lead and you got a, let's say 24-inch lead on there. You better flip that one over because that one they'll grab a hold of it, or you'll see them on electronics, they'll fly up to look at it. Oh, and they're spooky.
So I texted Jesse yesterday about bringing a rod because there's specific rods, for different things. One of the things, if you do a lot of vertical jigging, especially in the river, and you're over the side of the boat, even on the lake, works really well. And I don't have them because it's not something I do a lot of. 5'8" to 6'3", medium, extra fast. You've seen them on the shelf. You look at them, those walleye rods that are shorter than everything else on there. Like, oh, this will work great for casting because I got a lot of room. Well, they do work great for that, but they have a purpose. And for vertical jigging, they work really, really well. Something that's stiffer with just a little bit of bend at the end of the rod, so you're just right over the side of the boat with it. I don't use them a lot. That's why I didn't bring one with.
Yeah, when you sent me that, I'm like, man, I don't even hold any of them.
I thought maybe you did.
Maybe some
money,
but
so the 6'6" medium and medium light is what I do the majority of my fish plastics with, ringworms, those small paddle tails that are hooked up on there. It's the majority of what I use. And like I said, I like to eliminate as many variables as possible. I don't typically hand somebody a 7'6" if I'm fishing with a 6'6". And then tell them, here, fish the same bait, fish the same way, because you can't. Most people can't.
why not? They're using 12-footers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they wade out as far as they can in case.
That's when I like to sneak my boat in behind them.
Oh,
So on those two rods, I have two different size reels, and I have more rods. I just brought like a medium light, whatever. But on those rods, if I'm really finesse fishing, everybody's seen the gear ratio on your reels. You ever put much thought into what that gear ratio actually means? I show this to people all the time, and it kind of blows their mind when I tell them, hey, you're reeling too much, you're reeling too fast. That when you buy a reel, some of these, this one here is a 6'2" to 1 gear ratio. Every crank at the handle that I make starting here, and I go just back up to here, I pulled in about 35 inches of line. So when you think you're fishing slow, you're probably not fishing slow enough. Here, I'm gonna have you hold this real quick.
oh boy, here we go. First hooking of the hand of the year.
Just right up to the bait. I'm not
Got plenty
gonna.
of braid here to get it out.
It'll be a good demo.
So that's about my leader length there. It's right around 3 feet. You see where my handle is at? All the way down in there. So when you're not going on. So when I'm telling people, hey, fish slower, and they're doing this. They're reeling like this, and they're going. You don't realize it, but every crank of that handle, you just moved that bait 3 feet. You just moved that bait another 3 feet. Whereas the guy in the back of the boat or on the other side of the boat has got a 5'2" to 1 gear ratio, which is one of some of my other rods here. He's only moving it 25 inches every time he does it. So he's moving it a foot less. So it looks the same, it's the same action, the same movement, but it's moving it a foot less every time he does it. So especially right now when the water's really cold, I've noticed that I couldn't use these 6.0 to 1s or 6'2" to 1s to fish those small Kitex or or the ringworms, because I was almost dragging it or trying to hover it off the bottom. But with this faster gear ratio, I had that bait moving way too fast, had way too far off the bottom for too long. I was rarely getting bit. Or when I pop it and try to reel up my slack real quick, I pop it, reel up the slack, but I was actually pulling that bait an extra foot or two instead of popping it, reeling up only the slack and letting the bait fall back down right where it's at. So pay attention. That's why they design these, these different reels with all these different gear ratios. Stuck on carpet.
Yeah.
The rubber.
It's not hookless carbon either.
Get it out.
Pull hard.
Just pull it on it. Okay.
Don't do that.
And that's a big reason that I took the 2000 series reels off of my rods for the spring trips.
So Jason, I know last year Jason talked about that, and I was doing that too. I was using a lot of 1000 series reels, but the gear ratio on a 1000 series reel could be slower, and it's a slower gear ratio or smaller gear ratio, and it's also bringing it in even that much slower. Yeah. So instead of me having 1000 series reels and 2000 or 2500 and 3000 with 4 different gear ratios, I just said the hell with it. I'm going to all 2000 series reels because it's kind of the best middle of the road for walleye fishing. And then I just changed the gear ratios only. So I know when I pick up a rod and a reel, I'm like, okay, I'm pulling in 24 inches on this retrieve. I'm pulling up this on this. This rod is a 6'8" medium extra fast. You can fish plastics with it. You can fish whatever you want with it.
It's a good multi-tool.
It's a good multi-tool rod. It'll do damn near anything you want. It's really good for pulling ribbon wraps, which is what I got tied on there right now. It's an extra fast. So the bend in the rod is happening right up in here in this part of it. Whereas with a fast action, it's actually bending down here a little bit more. so it doesn't load up quite as much, so I can fish these little bit heavier baits and snap it, get just a little bit of rod bend on it and get that bait lifted up with minimal movement. If I try to do that with a medium light or even a medium moderate, that rod just bends and I have to rip it like this. I have to move the rod 3 feet to get the same action as if I move this just a foot at a time.
But there's still enough tip there that when the fish engages that bait, it's loading that rod tip up.
Yes.
Without ripping hooks on it. On it out.
Even with the medium lights too, even like a 1/4 ounce jig, and
Yes.
it's too much.
It's
So
like
you need, 16th, 1/8 ounce.
Sam. So with that 6/8 medium extra fast, Brandon's gonna talk about it. This whole box right here. You can throw everything that's in this box with that rod right there. It's a good all-around. Jesse, you use this box for just about for most of your fishing.
The ring turns and all the hair jigs, everything, you just the 6/8 medium action. I think they were extra fast, they were extra fast.
Another rod that is kind of a good all-purpose, all-around rod. This is a 7-foot medium fast rod. I'll use this, I was talking about with fishing plastics or fishing in heavy current when it's harder to bring fish in. I'll switch to either that 6/6 medium or a 7-foot medium. I can work that bait a lot better and I can work that fish a lot better in the current with just that little bit heavier rod. This rod also works really well for casting rip and wraps just like that, and I like using it for blade baits as well. Some people like going a little bit lighter with a blade bait. I don't. I like having a little bit stiffer rod for flipping blade baits.
It seems like when you're throwing, you need a little bit more extra to set the hook too.
Yep.
You don't really, I mean, you shouldn't say you don't feel, you don't, with that stiffer rod, you feel a little bit more of that tick when they hit it.
Yes,
with
yeah. You'll notice on here, there's no swivels. Everything is tied direct onto there. Swivels are great, and I like using them when it's just me fishing. If I'm fishing jig and wraps, fishing shiver minnows, some of that stuff that really twists and turns when you're fishing it fast. The swivels are all well and great, but see the end of this rod here, see that green tip on there? You're not gonna find another St. Croix Icon rod with that green tip on there. That is because I've let people fish with swivels and reeling swivels into rod tips. And it ended up breaking out the rod tip, the entire insert, and I had to replace the whole rod tip on there. You can use swivel, just be really cognizant of where that's at.
Keep them out of your rod.
When I have people in the boat that sometimes don't fish a lot, they're not paying attention, they wanna reel that bait as close as they can up to the rod tip, and you're and then you're losing that on there, and I cringe every time I hear that, cause I know one of these times they're gonna go to cast, set the hook next time, and without that insert in there, it's just gonna snap the line immediately, it's gonna cut it.
Even with netting the fish, don't crank it all the way up to the tip. Leave 30 inches at least.
I tell people leave
Yeah,
the length of the rod, leave it when you get, cause
Everybody wants to be like Van Damme and just go into the boat and get it in. We have a net there. Just leave 30 inches. If he wants to fight, that's what your dragon's for. Let him run out line.
if
You'll be able to, we'll be able to get it in that. Just don't crank.
if you wanna swing a fish in the boat, it's not hard to do it. You can't do it with 20 inches of line. You can't do it by grabbing, going like this and getting this down and you're grabbing the line and pulling that up. No, you've just taken what your rod is supposed to do out of the equation. Now there's no stretch in there. Even if it is monofilament, there's no stretch in 2 feet. You can swing, and these guys, he's watching me do it, and he goes from a distance, watching me swing 20-inch walleyes in the boat. Cause I've got 7 or 8 feet of line out, watch the momentum of the fish, and just all in one motion as he's swimming one way, you just lift the rod and let it keep swinging. That fish will come right into the boat. But you'll never see me grab a hold of the line and lift that fish up.
Or grab the rod and play up the board.
Because it's gonna break.
Yeah, I don't care if you've got an $8 fishing rod in your hand and you're trying to get a snag out, or you're trying to lift a 2-pound walleye out, an 18-inch walleye out. Grabbing this rod, if I try to grab this rod right here and try to lift an 18-inch walleye over the boat, I'm probably going to snap it. Because you've just taken this rod.
They're not $800 rod crying.
I get, that's why I don't have an $800 rod boat. But the rod is supposed to bend all the way down, and as soon as you do this, this is gone. Now it's only bending right up here, and I don't even want to push harder than that because I'm gonna start fracturing it.
You're making me cringe just watching me do that.
The next rod that I have that I use a lot of. This is a 7-foot medium light. This rod is like an all-purpose finesse fishing rod. I will fish small jigs and small plastics on it sometimes. I will fish hair jigs. It's one that I really, really like fishing hair jigs on. And it's also one for casting, not some, even dead sticking too. It works really well for dead sticking because it loads up nice. But this is a drop shot like what Sammy was talking about there.
You feel okay, that's a two-piece.
These are, so these rods, these are all Synchro, these are promo rods. They re-image. If any of you have some of the Premier rods from like 3 years ago where it was all black with the green on it. And then now you look at them now, they got a fancier label and stuff on it. They changed some of the handle on it. They changed some of the guides on it. This was one of the rods before they started selling them. I had some sent, Todd Forseer had some sent. It's just a Synchro Premier. That's all that this rod is. And I didn't get to choose 2-piece or 1-piece. But even so, once you start buying better rods, even the 2-piece rods are still good. But here's drop shot rod. This rod loads up really nice. I like this one for casting drop shots. That's why it's tied on there. All I did yesterday was actually just tie a new leader on it, and put some new line on the spool. But otherwise, it's the same rod it's been being used for the whole time. But it works well, like I said, for lighter jigs, for more finesse applications. That 7-foot rod versus 6'6" will allow you to cast it significantly further. When it's really windy, I don't like fishing really long rods. It's just a little bit more line that's out of the water for the wind to be able to take it, pull on it.
Question on drop shots for both you guys. I see both you guys have like the cannonball style
Mhm.
drop shot weights. Is there a preference or is there a application where you'll use a round one as opposed to the
Like the
odd one?
pencil, like the pencil ones. So the pencil ones, if I'm in rocks, and rocks are where it's gonna snag up on the bottom, that's when I would use that pencil one. Out here on Petenwell, you can tie in a bass casting sinker, just some extra weight because it's sand and mud everywhere you go.
They use them bell sinker ones.
Yeah,
Like for the Wolf River rig sink, just a lot of guys use this too.
yeah, the bass casting sinker. And that's fine if you want to retie it every time you want to readjust the depth. Like Sammy said, I can pull that out of there and I can readjust that depth. I will leave, that leader is pretty long. Sometimes I'll even have that hook up another foot further and I'll leave 10 inches of line hanging down there by the sinker because fish don't care about that. Because 5 casts later, I'll be watching the live scope and realize those fish don't want to come down at that bait. I have to bring it up a little bit higher, so then I'll lower that sinker. You also have to remember when you're casting these two,
Your angles.
the angle of that hook out on a distance, as I'm pulling it back to the boat like this, that hook isn't 2 feet up off the bottom. It's probably only 10 inches off the bottom. So it may seem really weird, and when you go to cast it, you kind of have to lob it out there. You can't whip it.
It's like casting a slip bobber.
Like casting a slip bobber, you have to lob it way out in front of you to let the weight carry itself out there. There's times I'll have 3.5 feet of a leader or 3.5 feet from the hook down to the sinker, just because on a longer cast, I know my bait is still only about a foot off the bottom.
It's important rod angle with drop shot.
Yes.
Everybody has kind of a different jig cadence when you're using a jig, and some people hold their rod a little bit
Mhm.
flatter. Some people are more of a 45 or whatever. The drop shot, you always want that rod tip.
I always try to keep the rod tip up just a little bit.
You want that rod tip up, and that's where your angle comes in.
And when I'm fishing these off the side of the boat, because there's times when fishing the drop shot vertically, rod in hand, is better than a jig. It is better than setting into the rod holder. The jigging action, if you want to impart some action on the bait, I'm usually not lifting this off the bottom. What I'm doing is dropping the rod tip. I'll drop it down, let the bait kind of settle, and then I'll bring it right back up to tight again. It brings the bait down, brings the bait back up. You're getting the same action as if you were jigging, bringing it up, but I can keep that thing bottom contact. I know exactly where my bait is in the entire time. And then
It's good to get it turned.
this is another rod that I like using hair jigs on. It's a 7/6 medium light, but this is not a hair jig tied on this one right now. This one here, this has been tied on there actually since last July when I fished the aim over on Green Bay. 15-pound leaders. I forgot to talk about that too. You talk about the leader. I'll let him talk about that. But this is a depth jig. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this. They're very, very popular in Green Bay. They do very, very well out here, especially any of you guys that watch your live scope and fish your live scope a lot. And you see those suspended fish. The fish that we're all out there, guys are out there pulling planer boards for, running their baits 5 or 6 feet below the surface, trying to catch those fish. Well, if you're like me and don't like to troll, and you wanna go out there and play around, these death jigs are fantastic for that, because that thing spins in the water. You put a 3/4 of a night crawler on there. But the reason I have a longer rod, and honestly, a lot of the guys that do this a lot, on the pro circuit, they're running 8.5 foot, medium moderate rods that will load up and bend halfway down there, load up and bend down here. The reason I like this medium light or longer rod, something that has a lot of bend to it. So when I'm fishing something like this, I'm reeling it nice and slow, reeling it slow, and all of a sudden that fish hits, and I can keep reeling and let that rod just load and load and load. I never have to set the hook, I just go like this. And just start reeling on it. You let the rod completely load up with it. That's what, and these longer rods are really good for that. I've tried to fish even the quarter ounce depth jigs. I tried to fish them on a 6.6. I lose 3/4 of the fish that hit it, I lose it. It's just, it doesn't have enough bend to load up because the fish grabs a hold of that night crawler at the end, or plastic, because you can fish plastic, and they grab a hold of that and they make it up to right up to by the hook. They've already got this much of it in their mouth, and you're already thinking, well, it's loaded, just grabbed it. No, there wasn't enough load in it. The fish couldn't get a hold of it and pull enough of it in. So a longer rod that loads up really well is really, really nice for that. Said here, this works really well for finesse fishing hair jigs, where you're almost fishing it on the bottom. That longer rod with that tick, you can do the same thing, letting the rod load up a little bit before you set it hard. This rod also here would work really, really well for slip bobbers. A 7'6" to an 8-foot rod, and a medium light or a medium moderate action, something that bends really well for a slip bobber, because I don't know what we see people do it all the time with a slip bobber. They reel up to the bobber, get a line kind of tight to the bobber, and set the hook. Well, you've not done anything. You could probably grab a hold of the bait. If you were underwater, you could have held onto that treble hook underneath there and set the hook in 25 feet of water, and you would have just let the treble hook go. That bait wasn't going anywhere. So these longer rods that load up nice with a slip bobber, reel it up, let it go, let the rod tip load, and then just ease into it too.
What are you calling that jig? Death?
It's called a death jig. It's made by Walleye Nations Creations. It's a death jig. They call it death jig.
DEATH?
Yes, yeah.
It's got a slow death hook.
It's got a slow death hook on the back. So when you hook the night crawler, you put
Okay.
you
All right.
you feed a full crawler all the way up onto it, and you actually push that night crawler all the way over the top of this hook and up towards the treble hook. And then I will take, you don't have to do it, but I like it because then the crawler doesn't slide down. There's little hook keepers or bait keepers on this slow death hook, but I'll push it all the way up past the knot, past the eye on this single hook. And then I'll hook just the tip of the night crawler onto that treble hook. And what it does is it allows it, like a slow death rig you're pulling with bottom bouncers, allows that night crawler to sit back there and twirl just like this behind it, while you've got this spinner up front here that's spinning around and creating a little bit of vibration and moving a little bit of water. Like, fish go absolutely nuts over this thing. I fished for 5 days straight on Green Bay last year with pre-fishing in the tournament. This actual bait here probably caught me 200 pounds of walleyes in 5 days. It's just is stupid how crazy they were. You floated night crawler and a jig in front of them, and they wouldn't touch it. You float all kinds of other stuff in front of them, put this on there, and they went absolutely bonkers over it.
They're also death on your wallet out here.
They're definitely, that's, I don't advise.
If you don't want it, it's not a big thing.
I don't advise going out onto the flats up by Monroe or north of the lure and just casting these all willy-nilly, because you're gonna lose a hell of a lot of them, and they're not cheap. Joe's got a lot of them, so that's good if you live in here.
That said, you don't have to have forward facing sonar to
No,
fish with those.
You don't. It just,
But it helps.
it helps because you let it hit the bottom, and then you have to reel it up and kind of you're trying to work it somewhere in the middle of the water column, wherever the fish are at. If you're in 6 feet of water, 7 feet of water, probably not a big deal. If you're in 28 feet of water, 35 feet of water, like I was over on the bay, if you didn't have forward facing sonar, you cast all day long and maybe catch one fish, because your bait may be 8 feet over, 8 feet underneath, and you have no clue where the fish are sitting and moving. This rod also, the other thing that I use this for on the bay that I caught fish with, I was casting a jig and a night crawler, making those long casts with a jig and a full night crawler. I was able to lob that out there a long ways, and I could let that fish feed up on that full night crawler and let him grab it and feed up, and I could feel the rod loading into it, and I just kept moving it the same. I never changed anything, even though I know there's a fish on there.
I just let that fish keep feeding up onto it until it was loaded up, and then just kind of start pulling on it and reeling it. You're not setting the hook real hard per se. But yeah, so that's on that. I'll answer questions afterwards on it. There's a lot more stuff I could have went over with the different reels for the different rods and stuff, but I could be up here for 6 hours talking about these things.
That's the mad scientist in ya.
It's when you do it a lot and you're looking for what little things are gonna make the difference for the day. That's when if you eliminate the amount of eliminate as many variables as you can. And then when you take the variables that you have and start adjusting, making minor adjustments onto that stuff. And that's where I went from 1000 series reels to all 2000 series reels. And then looking at the three different gear ratios of reels that I have on each one of these rods. I've got some 7'6" rods or 7-foot rods that have 6:2-to-1 gear ratios, and some of them I have a 5:2-to-1 where it's taking in a foot less line per revolution. It's all for different. I'm using different things. I've even taken when I'm in the boat and I realize I can't get bit with this, I'll swap the reels on the boat, swap the reels on the rods, so I can do what I wanted to do. So don't be afraid to make those changes, because that's the difference. I've been watching people in the river the last couple of weeks. Sammy's seen it. We've talked to a lot of those people up there. There's a lot of people I've seen out in boats that are literally catching maybe 1 fish a day. The day I heard that, my friend Steve was at the boat launch. He talked to 7 boats. There was 1 fish caught between 7 boats. I had 28 legals and 2 slots that day. It was because of those differences. Watching those little differences and taking into account what's happening. All right, Brandon.
All right. Well, my name is Brandon, Cyber's Guide Service. Talk a little bit about fishing hard baits. This time of year, it's incredibly popular, cast and jerk baits. Show of hands. Anybody do it regularly? Enjoy. If you haven't tried it, arguably the funnest bite of the year. My go-to stick baits this time of year, the Rapala Husky Jerk, either in a number 10 or in a number 12. And if you learn anything from me today, you cannot fish these baits slow enough. This time of year, early spring, late fall. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people making up in the river in the spring. You watch a YouTube video, you got Al Lindner talking about his favorite new Rapala that they just released. And they got him on camera and it's twitch, twitch, pause. He's turning the reel handle a couple of times, twitch, twitch, pause. And he's bringing that bait back to the boat fairly quickly. Fishing it like it's June or July. Some of the key differences here, number 1, he's not in the river. That water's not moving, that water's not flowing. Number 2, water is typically warmer by the time the walleye opener rolls around in Minnesota. So fish are a little bit more active. Early spring, late fall, those water temps are in the 30s, maybe tickling 40. When I work these baits, it's twitch, twitch, pause, and I will hold that rod tip, sometimes a full minute before I even touch the reel handle. Same thing, twitch, twitch, pause. When you've got moving, flowing water, that jerk bait back there, still working for you. Sometimes I'll let my rod tip go back foot and a half, let that start working back towards the fish that's following it. Understanding the triggering mechanism of these jerk baits, 99% of your fish are going to come on that pause. And you cannot, if it's cold water up in the river, in the spring, in the fall, you cannot work these baits slowly enough.
The only presentation slower than that used on the river is somebody dead sticking a Wolf River rig with a 4-inch jig head. That's the only thing I see fish slow. That could be fish slower than this.
Hey, the Scott Casey rig.
Yes.
They're not all jerk baits are created equally. Some of them are made of balsa. Some of them are made the hard plastic, like these Husky jerks are. Balsas are going to be your original floaters. when you look at this bait, unless you got a well-trained eye, just grabbing something off the shelf. I remember that guy talking about jerk baits. I'm just gonna grab one. Pay attention. This is a balsa construction. This is a plastic construction. This has on the pause, it's going to float back to the surface. When it's being retrieved, it's going to dive. When it pauses, it comes back up. These husky jerks, they have what's called a neutral buoyancy. So when it pauses, you reel these things down to the depth that you're working. When you hold them and you're on the pause, they're going to stay right there in the drag zone. So what I'm trying to figure out, am I deep enough? Am I not deep enough? I'll turn that reel handle until I start tickling rocks. And at that point, I know I'm right where I need to be. Snap, snap, hold it. And I know that bait's still back there, just a hunt. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is the size and the shape of the bill on the crankbait. The husky jerks here, it's a shallow diver. You don't have a 2.5 or 3 inches of plastic hanging out in front of this thing, causing it to dive deeper. And it's nice and narrow. It's flat and narrow. Things like scatter wraps, they've got that big cupped bill in the front. Love them. Absolutely love fishing them, especially if I'm smallmouth fishing in the summer and fall. That bill shape is going to cause that crankbait to hunt and seek on your ponds if you're in the river, or during the retrieve, it's going to get more erratic. This time of year, cold water, those fish are not going to expend calories and energy trying to chase down something that's that active. If you're throwing it, you're not getting bit. That's one of those variables that you can change. 10s and 12s are kind of my go-to. Hope he's throwing 14s too.
Yeah, I'll throw 14s.
14s.
And then you get people yelling, you put throwing husky jerk 14s, they think you're musky fishing. And then you catch a 7 pound.
Yeah, a lot of times that's them giant, that's what they want is them, those big.
Fast, dirty water, a lot of turbulence, that bait sitting there ticking rocks, like Brandon was saying.
Plus,
Picking the current, just picking the rocks, you got that rattle inside of that bait.
they're loud, these are really loud.
You've seen some of the bait that we pull outside of fish, that number 14 husky jerk is nowhere near the biggest thing that those walleye.
Yeah, they've got no issues taking down a bait that size. The thing that I run into with the 14s, and it's just a personal choice not to throw a lot of them unless it's just me. I lose a lot of them this time of year when I'm only fishing. Some of the spots that I'm fishing, it's a foot of water. There's just enough water there to put water over the dorsal fin of these walleyes. When the water's high, when the water's fast, those fish are going to push out of that really heavy current. I don't necessarily want a number 14 husky jerk burying its way into the riprap, because that's an $11 whoopsie every single time, because you're just not getting it back. And conversely, this time of year with the drawdown, if you need your exercise in the morning, go walk along the banks with the lower water and
Pick up the whoopsies.
yeah, pick up the whoopsies and put some new trebles on those split rings and really add to your collection. There's a few other newer Rapalas. The shadow wrap, the bodies are just a little different design. Gonna impart just a little bit different action, and you're gonna get a different wobble out of that crankbait. Not necessarily so much that it's not gonna maintain its line, but rather than being a really tight wiggle, you're gonna get more of a wide wobble out of it.
I believe those sink, they're slow sinking too. Yeah, these guys are slow sinking. The shadow wraps are slow sinking. These are a really, really good trolling bait early in the year too.
Yeah, that's like a 6 to 8 foot depth range for that.
Really good. They work really well.
That's what they use in Adele's cast under, below the dam down as Adele's one like that.
I like casting those for post spawn fish here as they're working their way out of the river. And I'm working some of the flats up on the north end of the lake. That's one that I have a lot of success with this one. When I'm choosing either a number 10 or number 12 on these husky jerks, depth is my biggest variable that I'm considering there. 10s don't dive quite as deep as that number 12. I lose a lot less of them. And I have yet to experience a day where the fisher are eating those jerk baits where they'll eat a number 12, but they won't eat a number 10. If that makes sense.
There's a really good video online, In-Depth Outdoors had a couple of years ago when they were still filming. PJ Vick and James Foles, they actually were in Nakusa up below the floodgates.
Yep.
And they did it in his jet drive boat, and they were fishing husky jerks all day long.
I think it's a 10 slot.
It was a really good day for them, but they go over how to fish that bait, and you get to see it. They'll talk about how long it sits there, how long you're letting it sit there in front of you. You're holding it rod, and all of a sudden it just gets about ripped out of your hand.
It's a very interactive fight. You know, this time of year, a lot of guys are pitching jigs. You're feeling that little tick. Probably the most rewarding walleye bite of the year. When it comes to that, that's what I'm looking for here. That immediate feedback. You don't have to finesse these fish. When they hit a bait, they hit a bait. When they're hitting these jerk baits, they're absolutely coming up.
Yeah, let them swallow.
Mm-hmm.
Even the 14s, that giant one that your wife did it for me. That one didn't. I had a hell of a time getting a 14 out of its throat. I thought I was gonna die actually.
You gotta think when a walleye eats a fathead, it's easy for them to all in one swoop just hit that fathead. They can, it's dead. It's in their mouth. They get the whole thing in one swoop. But you put something like that, 4 or 5 inch bait in front of them, they're not gonna hit it like they hit a fathead because the prey that they're trying to eat that big can swim faster and get away a lot easier. So they're trying to get it, expel the least amount of energy. They're not gonna chase it down and hit it 5 or 6 times. They're gonna hit it one time. So the entire thing is buried in the face. Usually.
The last thing I want to talk about with that is listen. My color selection. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people have when it comes to fishing dirty river systems is you have to have bright, gaudy colored baits in order to catch fish. Or gold, flashy bait in order for that fish to be able to see that bait.
What was the one, baby bass?
You take that bright gold bait or that yellow bait on a sunny day and go hold it up over your head with the sun. It disappears. They can't even see the damn thing.
Think about their forage baits. Is it neon green, fire tiger? Is it hot pink?
Sludge from the mill.
A natural presentation oftentimes may be the difference between getting bit and not getting bit. There's days in the river where I'm looking out the back of my boat and I can see my cavitation plate on my outboard clear as day. And there's days where you're 3 inches below the surface and it looks like chocolate milk. Those days.
There's, Mike, you probably heard of this, husky guys used to take all their topwater baits and take a Sharpie or spray paint everything black. I know guys that do that to their crankbaits too.
I do
Something silhouette the background off from the.
Any color for top water musky baits are good as long as it's black.
Or they take I did this old school MWC thing is paint the lips red on your crankbaits or paint them purple. There's times we're running all over. The first time the MWC was ever here, everybody's running around trying to find crankbaits. Well, we just took nail polish, took your crankbait, just took it, painted up the bill, painted the belly, just changed it up. Now they got, what is that? Spike, it's got all kinds of markers now. You can do just something like that. Even having like what they call it, bleeding or something that resembles or gill plates or something. Anything, any little change like that.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite jig colors all year long is black. That fish feeding up, being able to silhouette that. Tom Wynn, with two times NWT champ. He fishes 3-color jigs.
Olive
All
green,
good.
I've seen that.
green, black and gray.
I've seen that guy's boat. He literally has one jig box about that size that he'll carry with him. Well, he has probably got 4 of them, but it's because each one's got different colors: black, olive green, like a gray color.
Gray color.
And then he's got some other mirrored chrome color that makes the jig basically completely disappear. So all that's there is a night
But
crawler.
there-
But-
he's a tungsten guy too, versus a lead.
He's also not a river fisherman.
Yeah, he's a main lake guy, but there's a whole new ball of wax there from the
Yeah.
tungsten to the jig. I mean, that pound, going back to that color.
Color thing.
This is, Danny calls it the bleeding leech, but a friend of mine, he couldn't come today. He's fighting some cancer real bad, but this is his color.
That's
He swears up and down out here like this. And I think he bought them from you, the VMC ones. And he goes, can you size some of them up? I said, oh yeah, but it's black on black. And that's something you never think of using in a dirty body of water. You know, it's, what color did you get them on today? And you're like, oh, fire tiger or something UV colored, you're like that gaudy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's,
Don't hesitate to grab something natural or something dark and experiment.
and purple works all the time. Clear water, dark water, stain, whatever it is.
I'm gonna use that to transition over to blade baits. Spring and fall, these are some of my favorite presentations out there. I will say, not all blade baits are created equal. Lots of different manufacturers out there, the authentics.
These are the B3 ones.
Yep, B3 makes a fantastic blade bait. Anybody here not familiar with what a blade bait is? I should probably hit the pause button. So we have a flat piece of lead with a weight forward design with a couple of trebles and multiple hookup options as far as where you want to place your line along the back side of that blade base. And I'm going to leave these boxes on the table at the end. People want to come up and take a look. So you've got the B3 option.
I will say with them though
Here.
too, is you wanna always run a snap in them.
Absolutely. It's like casting an old spoon. You never tie directly to a spoon. You want to have a blade on it. Otherwise, you're going to take that favorite blade bait of yours and you're going to whip it as hard as you can. And you're going to watch it take off. Like, all right. And then your line's slack and you watch the splash and you just broke it off on your first cast.
Because you forgot to open your.
So if you don't have that, your vibration, you don't get your action out of the lure. If you just tie directly, then it's like a one-eyed spoon. Whoever fishes the Mississippi knows what, just a chunk of lead then, so it's, but no, you want that vibration and
So Acme, they've got a great blade bait. Rapala's got a couple different options. This is their ripping blade. You look at the front profile on these. There's some similarities, but there are definitely some differences as well.
this is the original body style from Head and Zonar, so that's been around for years.
Absolutely. And there's a reason that they've been around for so long. They are incredibly effective.
What are the ones you carry up the store, Joe?
Great outdoor legends.
Yeah.
Big dudes.
Big dudes or big dudes.
I think Walton them sell those too, don't they? Yeah. Doesn't he sell those on his website? Some deep fishing.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they sell those too. But that's like the zip lure kind of shape ones.
Yep. Mike McPherson out of Current Bite down in the Dells is making some, painting some, and some of my absolute favorites. The color combinations are incredible. The paint holds up better and as affordable or more affordable than some of the stuff you're gonna find commercially as well. These baits, I'll cast them, but I'm not bombing them up in the river. I lose more when I'm making long casts. And I work them very slowly on the way back. It's really gratifying to feel that boom all the way up through the rod, up through your arm, up through your heart, and back down the other side. Problem is that's not going to catch you any fish. A lot of times, especially when the water's cold, as soon as I feel that first couple of vibrations, those first couple of ticks, the boop, 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 stop. That's enough. let that bait settle back down. Boop, boop, boop. Let it settle back down. Some days it's one or two. And these fish are gonna come in and pin that bait to the bottom. And most of the fish that I catch on a blade are there at the chin hook.
They'll swallow it.
That's
feel that-
that's fair.
They'll hit it on the fall, you feel that little bit of a tick when it's going down, boom. They'll either swallow it or the saugers pin a lot of it, so you get a lot of them like that.
Jay Motto was telling me he fished a tournament years back over on Fox River in De Pere
Mhm.
in the spring. They said Brandon's talking about how you don't need to rip it and then a couple of bumps on it. When you get bit, remember how much did you feel that vibrate? Because there's times, and I do it now after Jason explained this to me. There's times where I'll rip that thing and I'll feel it, and that's why having the right rod so you can feel what's happening. You feel like count it. Is it is it is it hitting 4 times, 5 times? How many times do you feel in the vibration before you stop and let it settle down there? Because if fish will get keyed in on, and he was telling me about that bite on the tournament. There's guys around him throwing the same types of baits, and him and his partner were crushing them, but they were counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and they hold it, let it settle back to the bottom. A lot of times, like you said, the fish will hit it on the bottom. Those baits, when they fall, most of them don't stand straight up, they fall down, so you've got this big profile. So this fish can look down and see that thing sitting on the bottom, they'll pin it right to the bottom. A lot, you won't even feel the bite. Lately it's been like that fishing in the river the last couple weeks. You don't even feel the bite. The only time you know that there's a fish on is when you go to pick it back up to start working the bait again. And all of a sudden there's a fish on there. You come in, this bait is down his throat or, sideways in his face, but they suck that bait up off the bottom. So I'd rip it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, let it sit for 4 or 5 seconds and then pull it up. But they were hitting it to the bottom. It just took them a minute to see it fall. They see it sitting there, then they picked it up, and then I go to lift back up 4 seconds later and finally you had it.
That's where using
Most people fish these way too fast.
That's where using braided line with fluorocarbon there. There's no stretch. So any little tick you can find, it's a little bit easier to pull them back out too when it's snagged in the rocks.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times with mono, you won't feel that tick, it's just like they're pinning it down, or unless they slam it. But with braids, you'll feel that little tick when they hit it. It ain't much, but it's once you get one to hit when they're ticking, you get used to that. Other than a walleye snagged with plastic, it's different.
What's a trick? Because I know when you cast these, and I used to have this problem.
Yep.
What's a trick? Every time you throw, and you can be husky jerks, any bait that's got treble hooks. How do you minimize that so you're not getting hooked up, wrapped up all the time?
One of the biggest issues that I have with blade baits, ripping wraps, when you're working these things, that tail hook comes up and it hooks your leader. Now you're not getting the right action out of the bait. Doesn't feel right coming back in. Instead of using that 10-pound monofilament leader, I'm bumping up, like my blade bait leaders are 20-pound mono.
15 to 20 miles.
I just go straight to 20. I'm not a big fan of fluorocarbon. Number one, it's damn expensive. Number two, I like to have a little bit of shock absorber built in, and having that stretch in the mono affords that to me. But I'm gonna double my diameter of the line on the leader, just to keep that tail hook from coming up, whipping around and hooking. My leader material for my jerk bait rods, 10, 12-pound mono. I might bump to 14, but I don't have a ton of fouled baits with the jerk bait. Rattle baits, the lipless crankbaits, sorry, the blade baits, I want a much thicker leader material.
With the smaller blade baits too, it seems like this one's got a big clip on it. Run a lot bigger snap. I wouldn't use a snap any smaller than that with a blade bait. You won't get all that looped on your line, and you'll get your full, the action on your lure all the time too. And it's a lot easier on the eyes than using that little tiny one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just that little bit. I mean, it's not so much a spook factor. These fish are gonna hit it. If they want this, they're gonna hit it. But run a bigger swivel on it, you'll have a lot better.
Yep.
And they come with a small one, but run the next size up always.
Oh, so just about every one of these blade baits has 3 or 4 holes. How often do you guys manipulate your whole position on your blade bait.
Every time I fish with them.
You do.
If I'm throwing a blade bait and I know people around me are using blade baits and catching fish and I'm not, I'm gonna start making those changes.
Because I can honestly say I've never tied one other or snapped one other than that first one.
Sure.
What do they,
I prefer starting in the middle
so do I.
and then I'll adjust accordingly there.
Correct.
If I'm fishing really, really heavy current, I might move it forward just so that that bait is diving.
You get
back
more of
down.
an aggressive rip when you're hooked further back, cause it brings the bait a little more sideways and it
Yeah.
wobbles a lot more, so if you're hooked further towards the tail line, it's a lot more aggressive, you hook it forward, it keeps the bait up, so it kind of pulls more streamline through.
A lot of guys say that just, if you're casting them, to hook it farther back for more action on them.
Sure.
Or if you're vertical jigging them too, hook them in the far back or in the, you know, in the middle one there. I know a lot of guys that for just cast, you know, let's say they're fishing white bass, you're casting for smallmouth, they just hook them up front. You know, for a little bit more vibrant, you know, and it darts down a lot faster too when you do that.
White bass will hit it, it's all up.
I could be turning on the surface.
Yep, absolutely. Lipless cranks. I'm a big fan of the number 6 Rapala Rip and Wrap. There's lots of different manufacturers out there on the market that are making them now. I think Northland's got their offering. Walleye Nation Creations, I believe, just released theirs
Reef runner, guys, me.
this year, last year. Reef Runner has their new one, or Acme, whoever it is that bought them. They've got one as well. I really like the Rapala Rip and Wraps. Number one, because of the components. And number two, just about everybody's got. Joe has a great selection. Walk into your local bait shop if you're not from around here. It's a very popular option. And they're, when they first hit the market, the wow factor was more of a, there was a sticker shock associated with it. What do you mean I gotta pay $9-10 for a lipless crankbait to go fish a river system and donate them to the rock piles? The pricing on these has kind of calmed down a little bit there. I think Joe, the ones that I bought,
They're right around $8.
$8 a piece. And
Or unless you go on Ed the Divers.
add the diver.
Yeah, you
Yep,
buy the whole kit for 20 some bucks.
yep.
He's got all the colors.
Add the diver. He's a scuba diver. Hits a lot of the Green Bay tributaries, and he will scuba dive these rivers, retrieve these things, bring them back, refurbish them, and resell.
The hook split rings are all, they look like they're brand new.
That
He
sounds
comes in a big kit, you can get them in a big kit. He finds all kinds of stuff.
The other scuba diver in the room is scheming now. This is very, very similar to those blade baits. Again, you rip these things, you're gonna feel it all the way up your arm, through your heart, down the other side. Probably not gonna catch a whole lot of fish doing that. Figuring out what that jigging cadence needs to look like, it's gonna change a little bit day to day, and it's gonna change a little bit over the course of the day. Some days they just want a slow lift. Sometimes they want a 12 to 18 inch pop. Other days, as soon as you feel the rattles activate, stop. Let that bait settle back down. And this is another one where I'm gonna have a little bit beefier leader material. I do like to use crankbait snaps with these. However, the one thing that I'm gonna do differently with that is I'm gonna take that crankbait snap and I'm not running it through the split ring in the top. I'm actually attaching it directly to the little molded attachment point, the eyelet.
I bolted it.
Doing that, making that change has reduced the amount of tail hooks on my leader material significant. If you're direct tying to the split ring, that may reduce it as well, but if I prefer to have those crankbait snaps, I eliminate that split ring immediately.
That's a good smallmouth bait too, to cast in there too. Remember, this is moons ago. Remember ice fishing? We were over at Monroe. Remember dropping that down to the bottom? You can burn that on the bottom, you can hear
You
it.
can hear it.
You can hear it all
Yeah.
out. If
Yeah.
Don goes, get ready, I'm calling the fish in. And you gotta burn it like that. I mean, literally, you can feel it when if you use one before, but I mean, we're in 20 some feet of water. You can rip it really hard. And even if you're you make a long bomb cast, and you burn it like that, you can hear it a long ways away. But Thomas was just joking, making a fish call and burning it up.
Would a split ring do the same thing that a snap does on this blue rig?
It would, it just having the snap just makes it quicker to change.
Way quicker.
Just quicker to change.
Way more efficient.
There's some sample snaps too. It's the swivel. They're really, really expensive. They're like $5 or $10. I know guys run them on lipless crankbaits and for a lot more line twist, but they get a lot of action because that clip is really big on there, but the swivel is real tiny, and you don't get all the line twist or any of that too.
Yep. Spring of the year, fall, when those water temps are cool, that's when I'm reaching for those rip and wrap when I'm targeting the walleye. I'm targeting smallmouth. That's an all year bait. Through the ice, out here and otherwise, I'm number 5 rip and wrap. If you look in my rod box, I've always got one tied on. And that's crappies, white bass, walleyes, smallmouth. They just absolutely love them. And you've got to, what that?
Thomas had one tied up, but no, it's another one. They do make a real little one. I mean, it's literally as big as your thumbnail.
Yep. So the size profile's there. The ultra light rip and wrap has a number 3 and a number 4. The number 3 is the size of your thumbnail.
Yeah, literally, it's about maybe that big. That's it.
Yep. They're little.
And they'll.
Bluegills, crappies.
It takes a little bit more of a stiffer rod with it to get it to that smaller bait to burn a little bit, but they like that jigging, that up and down.
Yep. The number 4s. That's kind of my starting point for walleyes through the ice. If I'm downsizing a little bit. Number 5, if I'm finessing them in the open water. Otherwise, they're great through the ice. Number 6s.
Is that 6 that you just had?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have 7s and 8s in this box, or 7s, sorry. They do make one size even bigger yet. With that number 7.
Those are deep.
And we're talking, they're much bigger. For what we're doing around here. I don't use them. Post spawn fish, when they're up chasing bait around the flats. They're a lot of fun. You lose quite a few more, because the flats out here, there's no miles and miles of clean sand like you're gonna find out on the bay, or Leech Lake, Minnesota, where you can just drop your bow mount and spend the next 45 minutes on clean sand. I've donated a couple of $100 worth of lipless cranks to the stumps out here. And then Rapple has also got the lipless crankbait without the rattles. It's a very popular ice fishing lure and very underutilized open water lure as well. They're slab wrap. The profile of the bait is a little bit different. Got a little bit more of a slender, elongated tail, but you still get that nice wide wobble coming up. And then that injured bait fish mimicking profile on the fall. But this one, there's no rattles in it at all. You hear the split ring kind of snapping across the top here, but it's silent. And there are days where I can't buy a bite on a rip and wrap, but if I throw a slab wrap, it's a pretty consistent producer.
Kind of that midway point between a blade bait and a ribbon wrap.
Or jigging around.
One thing I'll do with the slab wrap once in a while to give it a little flash. BMC makes a
Bladed hybrid.
bladed hybrid treble hook.
Mhm.
It's got at the bottom of the treble hook, it's got this little willow leaf blade that hangs out the bottom. And you can buy them from VMC. I also went on Temu and I bought a bunch of the exact same things on Temu and I made all kinds of neat stuff with it. But you can hook those onto the bottom, you put it on that trail hook. So as that thing's tailing back down, you can do it on ripping wraps, you can do it on any baits really. But as that thing is coming down, you've got that willow leaf, that blade just giving off flash as that bait's falling back.
So which hook do you typically replace on those conferences?
I'm usually doing it on the rear hook.
On rear hook?
Yes, that's how I usually do it. If I'm fishing it vertically, if I'm fishing those baits vertically, I put it on the bottom one. If I'm casting it, I put it on the rear one.
So my friend Brett McComas, from Target Walleye, started doing this a few years ago. And when he's ice fishing, he's the belly treble, it's the bladed hybrid. If he's casting them, like Minnesota walleye opener, it's the tail opener. So, thank you for it.
What size snaps that you guys usually run on this plate?
The crankbait snaps? Are you talking,
The big
where's the one?
right there.
You talking this?
Yeah.
Up here?
Well, I don't really know
I
what
think that's
size.
No, those are the little ones. Double out
Oh,
is the,
different.
is the
opposite.
little one.
Probably the two.
This is a 2 or a 4, but I'd have to look at the packaging in my garage.
Most places you go, they got real tiny ones and then they got the bigger one, and that's the one that's always sold out. Those are the ones that's.
Okay.
The other thing
Shoot me
is,
a text message later, Paul, and I'll send.
what's the Rapala one that has, the VMC has the hair on the back one? That was a good one too.
The feather treble.
Yeah.
The X-Wrap.
X-ray.
Extra, yeah, that's another, putting a little bit of that on the, changing out them treble hooks on the back, the one like that with hair. Pretty cool, looks like almost like the bottom of a bucktail, but some of those come that way.
As we transition out of spawn, post spawn, those fish have taken that week or two to recover. Now they're putting on the feed bag. As they leave the river, they're getting a lot more aggressive. Glide baits, your jig and wrap, your puppet minnow, pitching puppet, shiver minnows. This is where I'll start snapping these guys around.
What water temperatures are you using that at?
Usually high 40s to low 50s is where I'm really starting to key in on how these fish are reacting to more aggressive presentations. Thomas loves to snap jigs and plastics and hair. And when I say snap, I mean he's ripping them. If those presentations are getting bit, I'm gonna grab a glide bait and I'm gonna see if I can get them to react to those as well. Your glide baits are a reaction bite. So as you're ripping this thing past their face, they don't have time to think about, man, is that food? Was that? Yeah. Was that food? Was that not food? They have a split second to react to it. A lot of times they're gonna chase it and they're gonna pin it right to the bottom. And this is another one where you rip it, you let it dart out, glide down to the bottom, and the next time you go to pick up on that, you're gonna feel it's almost like a double clutch, where you feel the weight of the fish and you're starting to put chin hooks or at the back of the throat is typically where we're finding those when they eat them. Lots of different manufacturers out there. Again, I'll leave all this stuff up here and open if you want to come up and browse it. What's your favorite? My number one favorite bait? If I had to pick one. What are you talking?
Oh, right. Oh, the flying lure.
Yeah.
Banjo minnow.
Banjo minnow. Oh, I've got too much crap in here.
You can have one.
Duke, do you have any of them?
Oh, yeah, what's that?
The banjo minnows?
No. There's a new
Yeah.
Oh,
glide bait, kinda,
We got it.
on the market.
this should be.
Hey, you lost out on that deal. I told you where they were at and say that.
Berkeley released their finisher a couple of years ago. The key difference between the finisher and your traditional glide baits, regardless of manufacturer, just give me some. Hooked in, those rigid tail fins are what causes this bait to dart, to circle. Finisher really doesn't have those at all. This heavy chunk of lead is designed to shoot up, down. The finisher I can actually suspend in the water column. If I'm fishing 40 feet of water and I want to get a darting action in front of the walleye that's suspended 15 feet down. Oh, I didn't know it pops. I can actually hang this in front of that walleye and still maintain that erratic darting action without having to reel up slack and I'm losing 3.5, 4 feet of a presentation every time I'm trying to put action. Again, this is another one of those baits where you don't have to have forward facing sonar, but it helps if you're an angler who really likes to scope, I cast at individual fish. Give these baits a try.
Brandon gave me some of them baits last year to try. I was watching on the live scope. It's stupid what they do. Like most baits, when you snap it and you let it hold it there, it's falling down or falling at you. I watched that bait a bunch of times and snap it, it'd be up high. I snap it again and I watch it on the live scope because the way it turns, that bait was falling back away from me. I've never had a bait do that, watching that you'd snap it and dance around and all of a sudden you let it fall. And I watched it on live scope, it was falling back away from me, like back at a fish. It was stupid. I've never seen something do that before.
So you talked about a triggering mechanism. How many lures do you have in your tackle box that you can actually swim back towards a fish?
Flying lure.
The band.
I lure.
The only one that I can think of.
Yep.
Or a tube jig.
That's another one that, with my glide baits, I'm gonna beef up my leader. I'm not gonna go with a thin wire, thin monofilament. I want something with a little bit heavier diameter. Rod selection. Depending on which baits that I'm throwing, I got my glide bait rod. This is a medium moderate. So it's got quite a bit of power, quite a bit of backbone.
I'm gonna be owning it here soon.
I don't know.
They're like an 8-foot fire rod.
Yeah. This one is the 7.2 medium moderate. So lots of power for heavier baits. And that transitions at least a third of the way back from in the blank into the backbone. Rip and wraps. If I'm fishing in heavier current, I want to have something with a little bit more backbone just to be able to continue to fight the fish. Excessive. If I'm in a more of a low flow or normal flow with these rip and wraps, I'm reaching for a medium extra fast. This one's my 6.8. This is kind of the multi-tool in my boat. This is my, if I'm throwing jigs and plastics, jigs and live minnows, rip and wraps. That's a fairly quick transition from tip to backbone. Allows for some load before the fish feels it, but still provides me with all the power that I need to effectively work the bait. And then when I'm throwing jerk baits, I want something with a slower action. This is a 7.6 medium light fast.
Really good thing we didn't turn it on.
I know.
Cameo should have turned the fly or turned the fan on for it.
Yeah, right. You can see just how much. Hard to do it. How much that load factor you get out of these little bit longer rod and slower action as well.
Shit, it's all.
That's the whole blank. Yep. And I'll leave these up here after we're done. Come on up. Check them out if you'd like. Anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Yeah, what direction, when you're in the river, front of the boat, back of the boat, what direction are you casting with the current?
Very, very rarely will you ever catch me making a cast upstream. That's a really good way to donate whatever's on the end of your line.
Yep.
To the river. There are some times where I'll quarter up with my jerk baits. Reel them down to depth, and then I'm gonna let that current push that jerk bait. Alongside the boat. If I'm jigging, if I'm throwing a lipless crank, if I'm in the river,
Over the side.
out to the side, I would say 90 degrees straight out. Is about as far upstream as I'm gonna make a cast. All right, Jesse, take it away.
Well, we're
Take a break.
yeah, we're gonna take a quick break, you know, let everybody stretch their legs, get some refreshments, go to use the restroom. And give us about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll be back for Jesse.
And then questions and answers.
And do you have to worry about tuning those at all for casting, or is that just all?
So no, these, yes. Out of the box, Husky jerks are generally pretty good. Most grapple baits are pretty good, but there are times where you, and I will take these baits, cast that Husky jerk off the back, and do this with any bait. Cast it off the back of the boat, cast it off the dock, whatever, and watch that bait swim at you, and you'll see it spin to the side, move to the side. If that bait isn't tailing straight at you, or you're seeing it's lifting up to the side and swimming sideways, that means that eyelid is probably bent too far that way, and it doesn't take much. You literally just take it with your finger, and you can bend it literally just like that. That little difference can make it swim back in
No,
place.
put that thing back in the.
I didn't push it that hard.
Offshore tackle has a tuning tool. No, and then Joe's got them in the shop. It's pretty nice because you just put it on there and all it does is makes a little, just a little click on it. That's all you need most of the time, and it'll straighten out. But most of the time it's reef runners that are or flicker shads where you gotta really tune them. But then there's some days where you can play with them, and you still can't get them. Even if you think you got it and it looks like it's off a little bit, throw it, get a different one out, because it's something you just can't tune. I mean, it looks like it's swimming right. I need to speed it up, and it goes up a little bit, but farther back and the faster you go, if you're turning or slowing, it's still. But most of the time when you get your shad wraps out of the box, there's nothing. I mean, they're boom, straight in there.
Northland is another one.
Yeah.
When they come out of the box, they're perfect. The majority of the time.
All right, let's take a break.
He's with you.
A little bit lower down, not like going way down.
I have never run more than everyone smiled out.
You can't even make it 100 yards down.
Not right now.
Oh, yeah, no, you can make it down to 99.
If there's somebody that you get a hold of,
If you wanna go down river, way down, a long ways down, or you just wanna fish some of the dams. Then you're fine, you can launch there and fish,
Yeah.
but literally, so. Okay, here's the boat launch here, like, let's say, and you're going, and the dam is here, it's kind of like at an angle, like here's the beach. It goes at an angle, so it's kind of like a pyramid like this, it's all shallow, and then it's deep towards the Juneau County side more.
Yeah.
So if you're out at the main chute coming out, the dam where they're generating water, it starts to make at an angle right there, so it'll be deeper there, and then out farther as you get towards the Juneau County side, it'll get real shallow, like right now. I mean, it goes from, well, I forget. I mean, yeah, it goes to the dam, you'll be, if you want to go down there, summer, you're fine. Or if you want to venture farther south, you gotta launch at the, or at the Two Rivers campground there, but then you can't, if you don't have a jet drive, or if you don't have. Yeah, you can't, it's pretty hard. I mean, we used to duck hunt the hell out of that down there, and you gotta get out. I mean, there's a lot of that shallow.
I can hit that question.
If they drop the water, let's say an inch, she's.
As long as there's over 10,000 CFS, you could take wherever you want, wherever you want.
I'll tell you. I don't know.
They don't need a big dance, and There's better places to go.
Yeah, a lot better.
That's where I usually get set. I mean, that's what.
Or the Dell, right on its own. Good. If you catch some sturgeon, the fishing for the sturgeon. Yeah. They get some decent ones there, but they're not 30 pounds.
You ever go, have you ever started? It's the more. Spots, I think they'll find it where there's spots.
Yeah, they can do what they demand.
Smaller one, it's the only person I know that's crazy about the fishing. Things are 2021. Up and down all the way.
You know, if you know that, like I fished well, I fished when
On top of it.
So how can I get as much out of the fishing here?
I'd say shortcut out here, people might go, well, hey. Near enough that I don't.
It was during the game when Brandon and I went up river like, everybody's gonna go up all the way around the trail. I would straight up the middle, like right through the middle of the air. This guy catch 3/4 of the.
Yeah, when I went to FLW out here, there was 200 and something. They're trying to follow the weeds and all that, they made a shortcut. They had 3 legal walleyes in the my first tournament. Everybody freaks out. They're like, oh, the movie's wrong. You haven't been celebrating around. Where you got a good picture, you still show us. You know,
I can sit out here and never be in less than. He's done here. Yeah, what's your but I did get to see the bottoms of my skin. I came down to him one second. He was all it's been a year. You don't need it. Now I can just yeah, ah, okay. I didn't say I have science. Yeah, all the way down there. It's actually he's not hurt. So he was right. He's not here. That's it. I'm just waiting to you got actually, you know, just kind of do what they say. I gotta get away from that. You have the. I did. I don't know. See me. You know, I would guess I gotta. I'm excited. I hate it's like we come down and say it's like way back. I love it. It's a see on that and there's some 20, 30 I
I had a guy who died, $600 for see, he's the guy on the road. He was on pretty.
I've heard in a dog about it. It's house next.
I don't know for sure. I never had that. No, street. It's not.
Yeah. Oh, we tried. Yeah, same. I was just. But yeah, no, it's like one of the. Last 2 years ago, we went out to. Awesome. And your house, if we switch around.
Yeah, start on his, recovery.
Hey, so you got, so you.
I don't talk about so.
I bet you.
I don't think it's say.
That's what I started doing.
Tuesday is the best day. I didn't realize.
Just Tuesday. Five. Really.
Wednesday. That's the I'll tell you now if you wanna go.
Yeah.
But the middle of the.
Dive school. Kids are in the.
Oh, I think. I've already been. A boat all the way. I get, because I'm like that. I stay on the lake.
And so Brad.
I'll have a new boat. Get an 1857.
Guys.
Or,
Only game we see the person should be here. I know. Everything happens now.
Yours were.
Off day.
I get to have. If I want to leave it out there, it's I shop, everyone believes in. I mean, I want to say. Use that other. No, I tried it. Yes. So. Never think about what was the and then you probably call me out. It's what it's saying. I do try. Yes. If I'm thinking, I try to set out. So I can stop it, just make a nice path. That's what's totally very, that's totally very, sure. I'm just don't think they want, that's right now, so. You got to see, I just don't have something.
There you go.
No, like never having one of any of the. I had a guy. Ordered recipe.
Yeah, I mean, every $6. He was the one who replaced it with $330. Same thing. That's just bad.
I got it. And Lenny called, he's like, oh, sorry. Lost. Guys.
I'll put his finger on the. Yep. I'm sure the whole.
Doing this again.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I like your.
Nice, we were on, don't worry. What?
Yes, go back.
Look at the little guy. More, Jesse, more.
Yeah. It's not like you're not a little. At least you could have done is give him a 20 and step it down.
No, he spent enough on the tab last time. His sister's the big bull tab winner. She's like, Dad, I won $2.50. I said, there's no way you could have won that, $250. And about 15 minutes later, she goes, how much is this one? It's another $100.
Yeah.
And it was sitting out in the car.
Yeah, sorry.
Never.
Those
That's what I put. You can step on or you can walk.
I'm all right. I was like, I can stand on that box and go.
So, pretty expensive. Just saying, you can also use place in the house.
Next year. It's really well. I haven't bought that, so I'm doing most of my time position. We have a secretary. It's just really silent.
I got that. I woke up for it. I am for you. It's like. Just like. But I feel like
One day, they asked me.
he's like. Then it's. That was a tan. I can see it. I'll get it. Really funny. I think that it got. The thing is, it's like.
That's why.
Deals where it seems like there's some. So you have to you know, it's you know. For sure.
That's what I nice.
Journey for
30 years.
Take it down.
Geez, you get one drink?
That's the way to make it.
So I still sleep in class.
I was actually. All right, everybody. We are going to get into Jesse. He can start his topic right now.
I'm Jesse Walleye. I own Greenwater Walleyes Guide Service. I've been a guide out here for, almost 30 years now. So when everybody says the history of the lake and everything, you've probably seen the book that showing everybody the pictures, Mike. It's pretty cool to see a lot of stuff like that. Today I want to talk to you about fishing plastics and stuff in the river, cold weather stuff like hair jigs, plastics. Like Brian is talking about, you don't want to use something really aggressive when the water's real cold like that. So a lot of times you'll start out with a small plastic, longer plastic, smaller tail on it, something that doesn't have a thump on it. Bright colors in the river seems like to work. What's the pink one? Yeah, is that the bubble gum one? This is Catalpa. They used to be that's probably one of the hottest ones, but sunny days. Something with some sparkle in it, glitter in it. White tip tail seems to be a hot color out here too. But sunny days, the firecracker ones. Biggest thing though is your water depth. You're fishing in a foot of water to 5 feet of water to 8 feet of water. People will go too much on the jig size. You'll see guys throwing 3/8, 5/8. You don't need to do that. You want something where it's kind of going to float down. So if you're in a boat and you're fishing eddies, shallow water, slack water, most of the time you don't have to use anything more than an 1/8 ounce jig. You're not casting upstream, and working down, you're gonna get snags like that. So you're gonna want to cast kind of, straight across from you or at an angle towards the back of the boat and just work it down. Matter of fact, I don't let anybody use more than a 1/4 ounce.
We was just having this conversation down here, and he was asking about, jig size, and I told him, I said, I have a rule of thumb in my boat. In this section of the river, the Dells is different, where I fish the depth, but in Nakusa, or even down below here, if I have to fish more than a 3/8 ounce jig, I'm not fishing there.
And that's back to the rod thing situation too, is I use all 6/8 for the plastic for your jigs. bigger hair jigs and stuff. A little bit more backbone. And I recently, I used to use mono all the time, but I switched over to braid too. But it seems like people can feel a lot more with a braid, and you can pull your baits out a lot, but because you do get snags so much.
What?
But it's yeah,
No.
yeah, it's terrible. Some spots are bad. But no, it's yeah, you just kind of want to be able to cast, halfway, let's say at an angle and just work it back real slowly that way. With a hair jig, I like to snap them, let it fall, pop them, let it fall. I don't really drag a hair jig so much where you're plastic, you can make a bomb cast, down straight down river from the boat and drag it back, or snap jig it or pop it. A really fun thing to do is when you get in a current like this, make a real long cast, just pop it and let it drift all the way back. Pop it. You don't even have to reel, just keep popping it. Well, you want to, you got fish moving upriver, so you're popping it, do it 3, 4, 5 times, reel up a little ways, pop it, pop it. Usually by the first time or the second time, if they're not there, just reel in, make another bomb cast, throw it out, and just pop it, pop it, pop it. Just try to figure out. It seems like if you get in those pockets where those fish are at, you work it back to the same spot, you can almost count a cadence, boom, boom, wham. Same thing with a hair jig too. You can pop it, let it fall, pop it, let it fall. A lot of guys just like the vertical jig hair jigs. I don't. You can pitch them, you can cast them, you can do. Steve was in my boat one day and we were counting, drop it down 1, 2, boom, they'd hit it. So and with hair too, you can soak it with scent. That's another big thing. And a lot of guys around here, they'll put meat on it. I don't put meat on it at all. You just use it plain. Mississippi's the same way. Duke will. He's another. How often you use meat on the Mississippi? You never see them with a hair jig, do they? Never. It just it's a whole different thing. If they're on the barge, they're making a bomb cast. They're working it real deep. They're just ripping them like that. But here you don't. It's a lot shallower water, unless you're below the dams. But you can vertical jig them, cast them. You can. What do you call your speed reeling? A lot of guys will. You see them on Green Bay doing that. Let it fall, burn it, let it fall. A lot of times, 90% of those times is you're not going to feel it like they're saying. You're going to go lift and jig it again, and they're going to have a hold of it. That's where the stinger hook comes in play because they pin it down to the bottom. I didn't tie stinger hooks on these, but 99% of people want stinger hook on them because they're nipping at the back of the hair, they're cutting it short, or
And that's one of those situations where if I'm burning a hair jig, I'm not moving that rod. I'm letting the reel, the gear ratios do the work for me. And instead of getting that hair jig to
Snap up.
snap up, hover, fall,
it just kind of starting.
It comes up a little bit when you first pull it. It pulls across the bottom and it sits there in the current. Kind of like there's a minnow trying to swim upstream, like going from rock to rock, trying to get behind stuff out of the current. It just comes up a little bit, moves, it stops, and just kind of sits right back down. It's at the same place. That you don't snap it too hard in the water. It'll be like this. It'll be nice and streamlined. And as soon as you stop or give a little bit of movement, that hair kind of fluffs out and then comes back in. It just fluffs back out, so it comes back in.
There's a lot of current. You get on the edge of an eddy, you got your current blowing down. You just take a quarter, I just run a 1/4 ounce jig and I'll drop it straight down like you're gonna vertical jig it, but you're kind of like you're walking it back of the boat. So you just start up, 3/4 of the way to the front of the boat, and then you're working it back, and that hair is just popping in that current going like that. That triggers a lot of fish. It's the same way with when guys are pulling flies too. You're going upriver pulling flies with 3-ways. That hair is going like this. A lot of times, unless it's a white bass or something, all you'll do is you go back and you go to pump forward and the fish will be there. You don't even need to set the hook. You just do a swing set kind of. So the same thing with a slip bobbler, but you want that hair puffing like that. Or you want it. Another good thing is too, you make a real long cast at an angle like that, and you pop it really hard and then let it sit. And a lot of times you just let it sit there for a little bit. They'll hone it. I mean, they say go down there, they'll hone in on it, and your line will be just sitting there, and they'll just smack it. Same thing with plastics, or even how many times have you cast it down in the lake too? Cast all out, and you're doing something with your line, and all of a sudden, boom, just takes right off. Your bait's just sitting there, and they're either suspended and they followed it down, or they hone right in on it and hammer on it. But once the water gets upper forties, gets in the fifties, then you want something more vibration, like the pulsar, got like a big square tail on them. You want to feel that real hard thumping. There's, I'm trying to think what the other ones are. What's the Kitex too, the big thumper tail. And another thing is with dirty water too. It seems like the dirty water, you want that hard thumping. And like here, I mean, every day is different. Some days you'll get them on bright baits, some days they're on, natural colors, but you kind of got to mix and match it up. But it seems like in the river time when it's real dirty like that, scent's a big thing. And you want something with that hard thump, the plastic, like a shad tail, or
They can feel it.
yeah. There's, oh, what's the beef fish in the middle one with the straight tail?
Rib fin.
Rib fin. There's a rib fin one that's just got a split tail. That's another real good one, but it's a longer bait. There's no action on it, so that's another one. Like the ringworm one is real cold, big bulky profile bait. So you just pop it real slow, let it fall, pop it real slow. Doesn't have no big thumper tail on it, no curly tail, it's just something straight. That's a good one in the fall, especially when they're eating big baits and stuff. But yeah, the biggest thing is you can mix and match. Like I always try to match. Purple's my favorite. You try to match purple with your purple or whatever, or it don't really matter sometimes. Seems like the key is your color, your twister tail or your plastic and all that more than I mean, you could run a bright orange head and then run the purple with a white twister tail body, but start out slow at the beginning of the year, smaller, nothing with a real hard thump on it. And then as the water temperature climbs, you can even add rattles to your jigs, dirty water or just little things like that. I know some guys will trim them down and put a minnow on there too. You really don't need to put a minnow on it. Or some guys will even I've never done it, but they put stinger hook, a lot of longer stinger hook on there and flip it in the worm. But really, there's no need to. If they're either gonna bite it or they're not gonna bite it. It's
Those bigger plastics like that, they work really vertical jigging, they'll work well too. And a lot of times when the water's cold and in the fall especially, you can vertical jig those in current. You're not lifting it, you're just moving the bait. Every once in a while, drop to make sure you're within a foot or so of the bottom, and you're just holding it there, letting that current sit there, letting that plastic sit there in the current. You don't have to do any action to it. That they'll smack that stuff. And a lot of times they'll hit that over and jig in the middle. Yeah. It's this spring. I've been out 7, 8, 9 times or so on full day trips and out with friends. I have yet to catch fish on it. I've yet to put a fish in the boat. And I think that it's all plastics.
That's what I like in the
Almost all
springtime. You don't even. I'll bring minnows with and all that, but 90% of the fish are caught on plastics or hair jig. There's a couple times we're fishing tournaments on the Mississippi River. We never even had any live bait in there. It was always just hair jigs or plastics. No, not that time of the year. I don't like them things anyhow. You get stung by one of those, and that's the end of it.
That's a bad day.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of plastics out there, like the Kitex, Beef Fish and Tackle is a big one that everybody uses.
Shoot, we could have done an entire.
There's Berkeley. There's a lot of Berkeley ones are all scented, so that. Yeah, there is.
Their topping with some plastics over there.
Yeah. But anything else anybody want to talk about? Springtime, cold water.
One thing that I will add to Jesse's plastics comment, a lot of different manufacturers out there, a lot of different profiles out there. High current, moving water, unless you're planning on putting a really heavy chunk of lead on it. Those big fat, like Kitex got the swing impact?
Yeah.
The big fat baits are gonna create a lot more drag. And in current, that equates to lift. So you're pulling, just because of the diameter of that bait, it's gonna pull that bait up out of the shrubs.
That's why a lot of
Match
people use
that, yep, match that, your profiles to the amount of flow that you're working. Out on the lake when there's very little or no flow, they're great. I mean, they'll hang for a lot longer compared to a ringworm or one of the slender bodied.
There's another thing
Easy shiners.
another thing you can do too, and I didn't touch on this, is if you're dealing with that where you're realizing it's not falling quite fast enough or it's falling too fast, If you looked at my boat and went through the compartments, I've got anything from 6 pound test up to, I think I got 20 in there. And I will change the line diameter to help the bait fall faster or fall slower. Because if I'm using a 6 pound leader or an 8 pound leader and I drop a 1/4 ounce jig, it's gonna fall faster than I have if I have a 12 or a 15 pound leader on it, just because of the line diameter and the drag on the line. Sometimes that can make a difference on how fast the jig is falling.
Yeah, that here, or that, braid definitely cuts through water.
Braid does, but if you run like I do, or like Brandon does, I got 4 or 5 feet of a monofilament on there, and it's monofilament floats on its own. So if I have 12 pound monofilament, it's already floating, and I can't get that thing to drop fast enough. Or if I need it to drop fast or whatever, I'll switch that line, I'll change the line diameter on there. And that's something I probably in the last couple of years that I started to really pay attention with. And there's days it makes a huge difference, especially when it's a really finicky bite. You notice when they're hitting it on the drop or as it's coming back down, or you pop the jig up and you're letting it fall and that's when they're hitting it. I've had the difference from getting bit with 8 pound test because it falls a little quicker, getting more of a reaction than using 12 pound test, and it falls just that little bit slower. Those are really, really like off things. Most of the time I'm probably not even realizing it, but it's happening. That's why I have all that stuff in there now for that.
I always,
Carbon sinks, monofilament floats.
I always start out more with 1/8 ounce jigs in the plastics. Seems like people can feel them a lot better, and you're getting a lot less snags. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not feeling the bottom, not feeling the bottom. They put it on a 1/4 ounce jig and they're snag. I said, you just gotta feel how the current is. You gotta work that bait back. If you're getting snagged constantly, you're way.
If you can feel the bottom
Yeah.
thing, and we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I just can't feel it when I'm
Yeah.
jigging. I don't feel it hit the bottom.
Not
But that's
always.
fine. You don't have to need it to. I'm catching fish and I don't even know that's why we use this bright green line a lot of times. It's so you can see it. Cause you'll see it, especially with a little bit of wind, you'll see the bite. You might not even feel it, but I'll see that line jump right there.
That's nice when you're dragging a jig too. They're dragging a ringworm. So you make a bomb cast and you're just dragging on the bottom and you get a little bit of slack line. If one really, like, let's say you get a slot fish or a big female hits it, your line will go up with just bang right away. But it's the biggest thing I always tell people fish way too deep and they fish with too heavy of, like I had a guy call me the other night and he's like, hey, do you make any 1/2 ounce jigs for old Petenwell Dam? I said, man, you don't need 1/2 ounce. He goes, well, there's so much current. He goes, well, can I get, he goes, I want 100 1/2 ounce and I want an ounce. I said, I don't even make ounce ones because I don't even have that mold. There's no need for it. Your key is these fish are going to be in slack water this time of year. Get in and out of the current, moving their way up. Yes, they're in current, but it's so much harder to catch them in that current.
And they're usually
And you got to use big stuff to get in that current where you get in those eddies and you can, it's easier. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier for people with a smaller, and you don't have to use a pool stick on an ounce jig like in Mississippi. It's easy. That's why you see everybody jumping to all them pockets and all that. And they're like, well, we're not catching anything. We're just vertical jigging down the river. I said, get tight to shore where these fish are at, find slack water. And if they're not there, they might be there in 10 minutes. There's times where you could boom, 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 and nothing. You go on the other side of the river and they're there. I mean, they're constantly moving this time of year.
see it with guys fishing off of Wakely's upriver in Nakusa. They're out there in their chest waders and they're standing up, filling up their pockets on their chest waders. They're 6 inches from going over, and they're casting the heavy jigs out. They're trying to work them back. And I literally have slid my boat and fished between them and the shoreline, behind them, catching fish on the shoreline, where they're walking down and stepping off the bank, and I'm pitching jigs 30 feet and catching fish.
Hello.
And they're getting ticked off at you.
I've been chewed out more times doing that than I have anything else out here.
But
Slipping your boat in behind the waves.
you don't need to fish deep. You're generally either fishing fish that are inactive, or a lot of times those guys, and you're out there, you catch 75 males that are 13 inches long and you can't catch a keeper. It's because you're fishing too deep or too fast to current.
Yeah.
You slide in closer to the shoreline, find a pocket.
Remember all those fish when we'd be in our waders and you'd be only in knee deep water at night casting crankbaits and those fish would be running into you. It freaks you out too when they do it. It's fun. Remember when you spinning around casting at the shoreline?
Yeah.
We're literally from here to the parking lot off the shoreline standing on the waders and we just walked through there and we would turn around and cast at the shoreline in 3 feet of water and catch walleyes doing this. But it's they're it's not always fishing in the channel, it's not always in slack water, it's not always, but it's. Man, so many people fish, oh, I wanna fish 30 feet of water all summer long, there's no need to, or there's. Especially this time of year, you don't even need to fish any deeper than 8 feet of water half the time.
July and August this year, we're
Yeah.
catching legals and slot fishing 3, 4 feet of water all summer long.
And they're not even, there's no structure, there's nothing there, just sand, it's food wise, it's gotta be.
Sheep's heads and white bass.
And that's another thing too, is once the walleyes are done, everything else kind of follows them. As they're coming back downriver, everything else is moving, crappies and all that. And you can do the same thing, fish all the slack waters, catch all your white bass, your crappies, the whole, it's. Any pocket will hold fish. You see people sitting here, the Wakely House, or over by the mansion. Or by the rock pile, everybody's sitting in those, because those people have been there all those years. You can go on any select spot down the river where they spawn, all the way throughout the whole river system, and catch them in that slack water. And then when they back down, it's the same way. You go down river and those fish are coming back down river. They're not in that current all the time. They back out into the slack water or the big shallow flats. All May last year, all them fish were shallow. Tons of them.
Stop fishing memories,
Yeah.
stop fishing the fish and fishing the condition. That's the biggest thing. I used to I have waypoints. Every one of us have waypoints on our boats. We don't use the waypoints hardly ever. I drive by and they're a reference because the fish have been there. They'll probably be there again, but they're not usually. There's like 2 spots on this and 3 spots on 2 of them are rock piles, and one of them is a staircase that I followed. On the edge of the river channel. Those are the only 3 spot on the spot places that I have on this entire system. Everything else is condition driven. It's I'm gonna drive here because of the wind, or there's a little extra current today, or it's cloudy instead of sunny, so I think they're gonna be up here, or it was windy yesterday. It's all condition driven. Most of the time I'm fishing some really weird off the wall stuff that nobody ever looks at just based off of the conditions. If you're gonna put 3,000 or 4,000 or $5,000 of electronics on your boat, and I'm not talking forward facing sonar, if you're gonna put live scope, or side imaging and 2D and down imaging on it, use it. Trust it and use it. It's not gonna lie to you. Don't think, oh, I fished here 3 days this whole week and I was catching fish like crazy and I'm gonna fish this spot again. Well, if your side imaging and 2D sonar say there isn't a fish there, probably not a fish there.
I had a dollar every time I heard somebody last 5 years. Oh, we marked them all summer long. Steve, we were talking about this. We marked them out here all summer long, all this wood. There ain't no fish here. It's a time of the year. You could go into Coosa and fish till you're blue in the face in some of those spots the rest of the year, and they're not there. There might be one straggler.
Honestly, rivers, they're just
Yeah.
not where they were in April.
Yeah, you gotta, granted, if you fish out here a lot or you fish Castle Rock in the river systems, you get to know, May they're here, June they're here. They start to filter out, then you get to see different things like that. But to go to that spot over and over and over and over, and then you talk to them at the boat launch, you're like, no, we didn't get nothing there. Well, that spot you took us to, we fished that whole shoreline and nothing. I said, yeah, they either moved up or they're gone. Or people will be like, well, the fish are, what happened to all the fish in the river? I said, well, 2 weeks ago, they're all up there. Well, they're like, well, it's May now. I said, yeah, they're in the lake. They've been in the lake for a while. Well, why isn't everybody fishing down farther? I said, because everybody's out in the lake. Or they'll be like, where'd all the boats go? I said, don't worry about the boats. The fish are, because you're not seeing the fish there because they moved and the boats are moving. Same thing on Bago. You see all the tuber guys moving. If them tuber guys are moving, that's because that school moved. Same thing here in the river. You might catch them in the morning there, go back in the afternoon, and there ain't nothing there. You go back there the next day, there ain't nothing there. Doesn't mean there might be fish there in 3 days, but you gotta constantly move and don't be afraid to fish a foot from the bank. That's the best. You could even pull up to the bank, spot lock in those slack waters, or you can tie up in the trees, you can vertical jig, there's multiple ways, but those fish are constantly moving. Don't fish a memory spot. I get it. There's spots where I fish quite a bit because you catch them throughout the year there, but it's.
In the springtime, those fish, I'll start chasing them early, kind of follow them where they start out, where they go to, and they come back. In the springtime, those walleyes they'll run from Wilderness, Longview, the lure, they'll be in the river channel, getting ready to move up, and they'll go from there to the mill and back down 24 to 36 hours. They're not out there, after them spawning, they're not gonna be in the river because they have to expel a lot of energy. there's a ton of fish, so the competition for food is higher. And they don't wanna be up there, the water's generally a little bit colder, it currents a lot faster, they go up there, they spawn, it's a 2 to 3 hour thing. And then they head right back down the lake.
Yeah, they move a lot faster. Then there's different, different year classes.
Yeah, there's waves of fish coming.
There's a good solid week and a half where you catch them like that. But all of a sudden you start catching smaller and smaller fish. That fish are done and they're gone already. They're like, oh, we're catching all the giant ones. Oh, we caught one big one here, you hear a lot. How many times you heard this? I caught one with one in it still. Not all of them spawn, all at the same time, you'll still catch waves of them, different one, but when the majority of them are there, the water's up, the temperature's right, 3 days, they're gone already.
As soon as I start catching fish that are really soft or some eggs are dropping or a spawned out fish, my mind's already full spawn. The river is cool. I might start there in the mornings to catch the fish that have come up from overnight that haven't left yet, haven't made their way back down. I'm already thinking full spawn. I'm already looking at areas on the river, backwater stuff, areas on the lake, and that might be April 10th. It might be May 15th. You just have water temperature, moon phase plays a little bit of a factor into that. But I don't spend. You can't fish memories. I caught them there last week. Well, in April, a week is a long time. A lot changes in the middle of April.
And you don't have to fish plastics or hair jigs or anything. There's times where throwing a slip sinker and a plain hook is the way that, and it's hard to fish that way because you got all the wood and all the rocks up, especially in the river rocks, where a drop shot with that pencil weight is an ideal, but then you gotta be, with
Boat control.
yeah, boat control, and you gotta be within a foot of the bottom a lot of times, but yeah, just move. I mean, just because they're not catching them, I mean, they're biting somewhere always. And you just gotta, it's hard to say, you catch them one year here, some years you don't catch them there. There's other years where they pound them at the Wakely house, and there's other years you go over there and you get a few, but not, or you get them on the rock pile where you just pound on them one time, and then another time you go there and there's nothing there but white bass. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna have white bass up to Wazoo for the next 5 years.
So
My lord.
that brings us to the next topic.
Yeah.
What's everybody's favorite way of cooking white bass? We need to get some of these guys harvested and restore a little bit.
There's so many out here and people on Cast Rock. This there, I don't care. Ask Steve. I don't care where you drill the hole. If your screen was full of big marks and you're like, oh, there's fish down there, most of the time it was multiple all together and it'd make you'd catch them. There's so many. It's
white bass,
Yeah.
4-inch white bass.
Oh yeah, that's the problem. You get doubles on crankbaits too. But by next spring, we'll have the galore of 12-inch, 10, 12-inch white bass.
Yeah.
But there's magnums out here. There's a lot of them out here, but boy, the boom of white bass is insane. I mean, you probably get pecked to death if you went overboard in the spoon. They'd have you deboned before you got to the fish. Even trolling. There was times last year I said, "Hey, we can't troll." Why not? I said, "Because of that." I mean, you get all 6 birds out, and then you realize the flicker shan, you got 2 on one crate. I'm like,
And they're not big enough to trip it.
we got an 18-incher. So yeah, because that was the first board we had, and but that went back. But that's the reason why. I'm gonna tell you this. Be with the DNR on this. What Jen's doing. You hear so much about the deer herd and all this stuff. They're doing the right thing out here. There's just so much food out here. You gotta get the right bait to where they want, the right size. Like last fall, everything was on giant.
This winter was terrible. Like ice fishing out here for walleyes was terrible.
Yeah.
It was. And we all talked about this, like these walleyes are not where they usually are. But we also had a lot of bait. Well, there's places where there was a lot of those little white bass ice fishing, but there was also, I didn't see the amount of those little white bass that I saw in the fall, open water and sheephead. I didn't see that stuff ice fishing, not to the extent that I saw open water leading up to it. So those fish had to went somewhere. Well, we kept talking about, well, these walleyes are somewhere else, they're probably shallow. Well, a lot of us didn't make transitions, and a lot of places where I thought those fish were at were kind of unsafe to go to anyway, so I didn't go looking. And then come this spring, come the last few weeks, as soon as stuff started to open up and I get my boat in the water and go look at those places, 28 legal walleyes one day, 21 legal walleyes the next day, 17 the next day, 14 the next day. And we're not talking 15 or quarters, I'm talking 16 to 19 inch fish. Where were these fish through ice fishing?
All the
They
legal
were right
waters you catch.
They were,
Footballs.
yeah,
Even a bird.
there's tons of fish in here. There's people online that are complaining so much about the walleye population and it's down and they're all getting taken out in the spring. I listen to the biologist because I know the numbers. I've helped contribute to some of those numbers over the last few years with her studies. There's more walleyes in this system now than there has been in probably 20 years. The size class that each person is looking for might not be there right now, but that ebbs and flows all the time anyways. But
In the 2000 era, we had that, where it was like 5 years of every walleye was 17 to 19 inches.
we had 3-4 years.
Tons of them like that.
3-4 years ago.
It was like at last fall, how many 10 inch wall, finger length, let's say they weren't 10 inches, but they're the size of them white bass,
Yeah.
let's just say 6, 8 inch ones, the
They're
finger length.
now by the summer, they're gonna be.
He'd have a
13.
giant chub on and he'd reel it in and you're like, God, this feels heavy. And there's this little tiny walleye and he's got this big teeth going.
Yeah.
Or your tail would be chewed off in the chub.
You don't even have a hook in the fish and you just repeat
You're
it.
constantly.
The side of the.
Yeah, you can feel it, you pick it up and you're like, oh, there's weight and you can reel it up real slow. And there's that walleye, he's got a hold of that. And I'm like, man, dude, that thing's bigger than you. There's, even on Castle Rock this last winter too. We didn't catch that many. The one day we caught some, you guys, some decent one keepers, but there is. You don't always have to go after walleyes. I know everybody wants a walleye fish and all that. There's other things, but everything goes in cycles. There's years where you can hardly catch perch around here anymore. Now the perch are booming everywhere, and then this white bass next year, who knows what they're gonna eat this summer? They could be 10, 12 inches long, but man, I'll tell you what, there's gonna be a lot of them.
Jennifer at the ice fishing seminar. In the fall, they do some mile-long drag
That's what I was.
for looking for fish in the year,
Oh, the young of the year.
the young of the
They
year.
have
And
Castle, but
yeah, last fall and the fall before, normally they'll get about 100 fish in that mile-long drag. On Petenwell here, they averaged 165 both years. So
that's-
right,
just fingerling walleye.
that was
Spring of the year hatch. So that's.
so once them come into size, there's gonna be a bunch of.
It was the highest numbers they had seen during one of those fall shocking surveys since 2016.
Yeah, she said it was the biggest, I think that's the largest in history ever on Castle Rock even. But it just goes in spurt, it's like turkeys, sometimes years you see 3, 4 little ones with them, and other years like last year, every flock has 20 little ones with it, But it's not fished out.
So much of the success of the spawn isn't necessarily the spawn itself. It's not what's happening in the river.
It's the recruitment.
It's the recruitment. It's how long do those little fish, those ones that have, how long do they live? And is there a food source for them? A lot of that, because of what they're feeding on, is dictated, the photoplankton and whatever else, dictated by the sunlight. So ice is off, you get sunlight, it starts to make the photoplankton, these other things grow in the water column, things that the baby walleyes need to eat and baby white bass they need to eat. So if stuff comes out too early, or if ice comes out too early, or comes off too late, it throws that whole cycle off. If these fish get flushed down the river, these inch long, half inch long fry get flushed down the river and there's no food for them, they're gonna die. They just die. But we had a couple of good years, the last couple of years, where everything was timed just right, water temperature right, the sunlight and everything, it all worked out perfect, and that's what added to this. Catching fish, yeah, you can over harvest. You're not over harvesting the 26-mile long system. There's a lot of fishermen out there, but we see it. There's not that many fish caught and kept. The Creel survey showed it when they surveyed every boat launch, for a 6-month time frame. There's not that many fish being caught and kept.
You want to talk
what
about
they're finding.
species of fish, and you want to think the lakes. Go watch them when they're shocking ones. When they hit that electrode, the species of fish that are floating,
Yeah.
they might be just scooping up walleyes and all that. But I've been out there when they were shocking and the white bass were coming in. They would zap, and you could have filled semi-loads of white bass. And there's times where all the male walleyes, like from the pipe up to the treatment plant, they were shocking in there, and all the male walleye, that was, well, not all was left, but everything was spawned out. They were trying to take just 14-inch fish. They would zap that, and there'd be 1,000+ walleyes that come to the surface.
On a smaller scale, I helped them do a shocking survey on the Rocha Cree trout stream, just on the east side of County Road G, so 15 minutes from here, and we only walked a 200-yard section of that. It wasn't very far. We had two little sleds with little boom shockers on it. We shot almost 400 trout, 200 yards. I fished that stream. I've known that, I fished that stream since I was 6 years old with my dad, and my grandpa. And my grandpa's fishing my dad, and everybody, and I told them how many trout. Granted, a lot of them were like this, but we were shocking 21-inch browns, 22-inch browns, and 16, 17-inch brook trout that I have never seen, let alone caught in that section of stream. So, and I've never heard of anybody even catching those fish or seeing that kind of stuff. And that's just a tiny little stream in a tiny little area, and it's holding that many fish. Come over here when they shock you, like Jesse said, they literally hit that boom shocker. They'd be 5 feet of water, and in an area the size of this room, 500 fish floating up, and you're like, where the hell are
One
they coming from?
species, and when they're the white bass, let's say the white bass are there, the walleyes are spawned. I was there when to witness both of them. Oh my god! I mean, it's insane. That was a few years ago. It's the same thing with catfish. They're just doing a study on cats, and I don't know, they just unbelievable amount of catfish that they.
There are not many systems that are gonna support that kind of, biome.
Like Michigan, where they almost ate themselves out of alewives, that ain't gonna happen here. You got sheephead, you got white bass, you got, there's that big shiner that looks like a Milwaukee shiner out here too. In the fall on the West Shore, the whole thing, all down the beach, they're all dead. Like one day Bryce was like, where are all the dead minnows there? And I went over, they're all about this big. It's just a small emerald shiner. And the whole shoreline was full of them. So you got that. There's plenty of food in there. And that's the reason why you'll catch a 14.5 incher this time of year. And by August, that fish is already almost 16 inches long.
Some of the highest growth rates in like
It's comparable to you.
comparable to Erie in the growth rates, how fast these fish are growing out here. You could tell when you catch a 17-inch fish and the head is just a little short head and really small on it, it's a 17-inch female. Or you catch it in a 16, 17, 18-inch fish that looks like it should be a female that's got spawn in her, you go to clean it, and it's not even a male.
Really?
It's not even that. She has the sexual reproduction organs to be a female. She's just only 4 years old. She's not even mature yet. She grew to 17 inches long in 4 years. The growth rate is that fast in here. And then the lad for 3 years, me and a couple other guys were keeping fish head and then recording links of every fish that we caught. So thousands of fish, over the course of a couple of years, the heads, but then all the fish that we caught, male or female, and then the size of all that. Jen has all that data. So the next report they put out on the health of that's a lot of that's gonna play a factor into that. But it was just insane seeing how fast those fish are growing out.
Another thing is people don't think fish move up in the river or go down the river. Last fall, we're catching walleyes down by the dam in the deep water on the buoy line that were tagged in April up in the Coosa. They were tagged all shocked between the Freeman boat launch and the paper mill. And those fish are all the way down there. And there's ones where we caught them, multiple different times. They've been caught throughout different years, guys. Record that, or if they didn't harvest it, or it was a slot fish. But that's the thing is most of those fish, those older ones, they grow so fast. They're 18, 19 inches. Poof, they're 22, 23, and then the next following year they're even bigger yet. These fish explode out here, girth wise and length wise, very very fast. But you don't see many over 30s. I think they get to a certain size and they
26 and a half, 27.
yeah they kind of slow way down. What's that, Junior? Oh boy, my favorite would be panfish, walleyes, bluegills, crappies.
All of them.
Yeah. No, you guys are like, actually, I got sheephead the other day. A guy, our Polish neighbor, come over and he's like, "Yeah, I got crappies." I said, "Oh no, you didn't catch no crappies." He goes, "These are sheephead." I said, "All right." Bryson was eating them. I said, "Man, okay, I'll try them. They're not bad." No, I like panfish, walleyes, crappies, perch, bluegills, stuff like that.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite fish? Catfish.
All right, there you go.
I
I got a guy from Iowa, he said, hook you up.
Oh, there you go, Paul. I see some mentorship.
Man, there's something about that flathead catfish. We're on the Mississippi. We were fishing a couple of tournaments and we keep those 24-inch ones. Oh man.
Yeah, we got into them out here this last summer.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them last couple years are like, they look like a giant bullhead, but they're only about that big.
24, 25 inch rates. So
Yeah, that's perfect. But man, years ago, you used to catch bullheads out here, and then ever since they've started catching flathead catfish, you don't even hear of anybody catching
I
bullhead.
haven't heard of anybody catching bullhead.
Yeah,
I would on my entire life.
yeah, to catch them, you used to go on the dock every night and you get all kinds of them, not no more.
I started almost caught a bourbon out, and then you tell me where and I'll buy you a glass of beer. I want to know where to catch a bourbon on this thing.
I've seen trout caught over here, but that's, you know. Anything else? Any other questions? Come on, Mike, you're brewing something.
Oh, yeah.
I heard somebody say something about redstone earlier. What'd you do? Take the dam out?
Yeah, no. I had a question. So you normally, you guys are talking about fishing shallow, but what scenarios would you actually vertical jig in deeper water?
If you're below the dam or out in the main lake, you know,
Yeah,
I'd like to cast more.
If I'm in 32 feet of water, 33 feet of water, I might have the patience for it, but casting out and getting people to like make long casts, watching the bait fall, then working it right, because in 37 feet of water, you've got so much drag on your line. It takes a long time for it to fall. I find myself when I'm full in that kind of depth, I'm fishing vertical a lot. I don't want to have to jump up to a heavier jig to get it to fall fast enough. I find myself vertical jigging a lot when I'm in that 30, 28, 30 foot plus. I try not to fish that deep because if you bring them in too fast, it's a good way to kill them.
I personally like to cast it.
I just rather cast it if I can. I just try not to fish that deep if I don't have to.
Too many years of fishing the MWC in Spring Valley and you're vertical jigging all day long. Oh my God. Or on the Mississippi too. They get boat anchors, boom, feel them in, boom. But no, there's times where it's effective. Like let's say you're below the dam and you're fishing in deep water. You can cast, you can drag, you can vertical jig over the boat. You try a little bit of everything, but usually deep. Or if you're out here, let's say you're out in the channel and you're spot locked on a spot, you got dead sticks out. You know, I have guys still vertical jig, and you'll still catch them that way, you know. But it's time, you know, it's just
You have to let the fish dictate it. You have to let the fish dictate it. The conditions and the fish, you have to let that dictate what they want.
you still see guys slipping the river too quick at vertical jigging.
So what's the trick to not get it to kill them on the way up?
There is no trick.
There's no trick.
Even just because you don't see the air bladder pushing out, you know, or the stomach being pushed out from the air bladder out of their throat, doesn't mean that, well, they're okay, they're fine. They get nitrogen ball, they get the vents, just like a human would coming up too fast, they can get the vents. And they come up that fathom, that first fathom, once they get below probably 22 foot of water, that's when you start seeing a little bit more of an issue. But you really don't see those big problems until you hit closer to 30 foot in the water. And the size of the fish, whether or not they can burp that air or not, that makes a little bit of a difference. Like a 25-inch fish, if you fish it, you know, it's nice, bring it in nice and slow, will probably do a little bit better, especially cooler water, will probably do a little bit better than bringing in a 13-inch fish out of 25, 20 foot water. I've done it, he's done it, we've all done it, been fishing a spot where in 27, 20 foot water, and all of a sudden I realize an hour later, there's a seagull pecking at a little wall over here, is a seagull pecking. I pick up and move. I'm not gonna sit there and allow people to be in my boat and be killing fish one right after another. I've seen it happen, watching do it, and there's a string of walleyes for 3/4 of a mile going down the middle of the lake because they went down. Yeah, sure, they went down on your live scope, on your scene, on your flasher, they went down your hole. But what they did is they went down like this, they got down so far, or they made it to the bottom and they sat there for a little while, and then the nitrogen got to them. Or the
Remains of ruptured.
yeah, something, you know, they're having an aneurysm basically, and all of a sudden here they are. They're floating up below the ice. I would love to see it get into some of these areas that are heavily ice fishing, and get down underneath the ice when after a weekend of people fishing and catching and releasing, catching, releasing, going underneath the ice. How many hundreds of fish are probably sitting there dead, frozen at the bottom of the ice? He's fishing too deep and bringing them in too fast.
That's another.
You can actually see that on your live scope sometimes too, like you were saying, you release them and they'll go down and they might go down 10 feet and they just get stuck.
Or they go to the bottom, and then 20 minutes later, you realize that fish is still there, and all of a sudden, you're the fish. See them floating right at the top.
That's another thing. Dan, just cut the line. You see so many people in the summertime. If you're dead sticking in there, hooked deep like that, and you got a hook on, just clip it. It's easier for them. it'll either dissolve or I've caught them with jigs in them. I've caught them with hooks in them or 3 feet of line hanging on them. But in the springtime, you see so much of that bull dam. You know, the guy's got a great big forceps and he's grinding in it. Just cut the hook and let it.
I didn't believe it was past that, but me and Thomas had it happen. That 4 years ago, we're fishing out on the lake. In 20-something feet of water, we were in a spot, we were catching perch. And we were using drop shots. And plant on my boat, reels in a fish, and I'm like, how long was that fish on? It's got a hook coming out of his rear end. And then the next thing I realized is we're using yellow drop shot hooks. Thomas is next to me. He's like, I think I caught that one last week. And the hook was buried, so he cut it. And it was already passing it through.
Another thing that you can do, because there are so many short fish in this system, and they take a few years to get up to keeper size. So odds are they're going to get caught at some point. And when you have live bait, they're trying to shove that down their gullet as fast as they can, right? So what I started doing a few years ago is actually using barbless hooks. And when because you really, as long as you keep that line tight, you're not going to drop that fish, right? Probably the number one thing that your barb does is keep your bait from coming off. So like if I'm using chubs that might get a little ornery, I'll just take like the end of a worm or a soft plastic and give that rubber on that hook, and that keeps that bait from working itself off.
If guys that are fly fishing for 15-pound steelhead can keep a steelhead on a number 20,
Yes,
single hook.
You just got
it's all about how you handling it, and I tell you, like it's just so much easier to get that hook out when there ain't no barb on it. It really is. It's a very easy thing that and you don't even have to go buy barbless hooks. Just pinch it down and it does wonders. And
Yeah, man, that's always.
like they're saying, if there's no barb on it, it's a lot easier for that. If it's down so deep that you can't get it. If there's no barb on it, it's going to be a lot easier for that fish to work it out on its own to pass it through.
That's why I don't like running dead sticks with fatheads on them. Half the time, it loads up or they slam it. You reel it up, it's already bleeding. He's got her swallowed, and just cut the line.
So taking care of the fish, taking care of the resource. One other point that I want to try to make to everybody. Open water's here, river season is here. Thomas, I think you had a post the other day on your Facebook social media. Spend the time to drain your trailer at the bottom of the ramp before you drag that thing out.
They're actually invisible. You're actually gonna start watching more and more, and there's gonna be more tickets. You cannot, by law, support. You have to have everything drained out. You have to have your plug out of your boat. You have to have everything. I was talking to Warden yesterday about that. He says they're gonna crack down on that more. If you have something hanging off your boat, there's no ifs and the buts anymore. You're gonna get a ticket.
But as far as preserving the landings during this cold season, if we're at or below freezing, drain the trailers. Let that water run off. It takes an extra minute or two.
Let somebody complain that you took an extra 35 seconds. At least they can get their truck off the ramp.
And the Cooster Freeman launch, that gets bad.
Yeah.
They had the loader there last year pulling guys up for a couple hours in the morning because it's so icy.
I keep a bucket of salt in the back of the truck.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
There is a pile of sand at the Freeman Landing that they use all winter long for roads that they're gonna leave for quite a while. Feel free to use it. If I used some last weekend on the actual dock, it was clear ice Sunday morning.
You know, that's frosty 2 in the morning. That's
Oh, yeah, I did put that on there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a big sand pile on the
That far corner, that southwest corner.
over on the southwest corner. And I think they're gonna leave it there at least until we know it's not gonna have those cold nights.
It's June,
Right.
4th of July, maybe.
Are there certain times a year that you target a certain part of the lake?
It seemed, well, like, let's say now fish are migrating, they're gonna target
Yeah.
let's say Yellow Banks to the Nakusa Dam area, you know. Those fish are done spawning, let's just say walleyes, they're done spawning. A lot of times, May and June, you're in the northern half of the lake, let's say from Yellow Banks down to Longview or Halls Point. And then usually by that time, by Memorial Day, the fish are really been on the move, they're scattered. there's different, I mean,
That's a general rule.
yeah, it's,
But there are fish that spawn on this lake,
Yeah.
and the south end of the lake doesn't warm up to the upper forties until a week or two later than it would up in the Coosa at the dam. There are fish that spawn at the south end of the lake, there are fish that spawn in front of Monroe, there are fish that spawn in front of Wilderness, and all that happens at little different times in there. There's always fish in the, not every fish goes up there, not every female goes up there, and definitely not every male goes up there. There's people that I know that don't even go in the river, that as soon as this launch is open, even whether the water's low or not, they're gonna go out and they're gonna catch a living of walleyes April 5th on the same break line that they're gonna fish in June. Cause not all those fish are doing the same thing at the same time. Like I said, those females especially 24 hours, 36 hours up and back. And then they start to slowly spread across. A lot of that's dictated by the current and more so by water temperature. As soon as that water temperature starts to warm up, fish move out of the channel, move out of those deeper pockets, they start pushing up onto those flats, because that's where the fish is going, where the warm water's at. That might happen April 10th, that might happen April 5th. But there's fish all over the system that can be caught at any time of the year. There's no one special place to be. There's just they're not easier to catch necessarily because they're in the river in the spring. It's just because there's that many of them there at one time. But you can go out in the lake and you can catch them at the same time of year if there's no ice there.
so I'd say is if you're gonna not go in the river, trust your electronics then.
Yes.
And go, out on the lake and just, try different areas, try shallow, try deep, try the channel, try all the, and just try, I mean, you're like, wow, there's a pot of fish there. You pull in there and pow, they're like, wow, these are all big walleyes in here. Why didn't they go to the river? Because they don't have to and they don't want to.
But like Jesse said, trust in your electronics, if you're gonna try that early on the lake. And there was a guy out here that he loved to catch fish on the lake, spawn.
You catch them spawning in 15 feet of water.
Yeah.
Yes, you catch them spawning in 15 feet of water.
But-
Bottom areas.
But remember, with our drawdown, you start that as soon as ice is off. Think of where you see trees that are 6 or 7 feet below the surface. In the summer, at full pool. In the spring, that tree might only be a foot below the surface. So if you're not in the channel, you're coming up like along the edge of the channel into some of the flats where there is some standing timber. I wouldn't be doing it at speed racer speed.
I think it goes back to Thomas said earlier about not fishing memories. Is the thing that we got to remember is that there are these little green monsters that live under the water. Okay, like they don't have a script, and they don't need to follow the script.
Sure, don't read it mostly.
Exactly. So it's important to use your electronics and keep an open mind, and always have that desire to keep thinking about moving on.
Question for you, Thomas, I think it's you that posted online about boat safety and boat regulations changes and whatever. Can you guys comment on some of?
One of the biggest things I see, so I made a post a couple weeks ago. Just some different voting regulations that people completely they don't pay attention to, or they didn't read the book. The biggest thing that I see is in the river when people are fishing in the river, and it's people fishing at night and during the summer too, the same thing. When you are anchored or spot locked and you are not moving, you are not underway with the big motor, you're sitting in one spot. You do not need to have, or you can't have those red and green lights on the front. Because if I'm coming up river and it's 10 o'clock at night, or coming down river and it's 10 o'clock at night, and I see that there's red, green lights, I'm expecting that you're moving somewhere. I have to give you a wider berth, I have to do different things. And you're anchored in the middle of the river. Shut that off. If I see a single glowing white light that is 3.3 feet or whatever higher, it's supposed to be the highest point in your boat, and I see that one glowing white light up there, I know that boat's anchored. So I can move accordingly to that. So you don't need to have, when you are anchored, don't turn your red and green lights on. When you're moving underway or under power, then you put both lights on, the rear one and the back one.
Most Midwestern states they have that line.
But it's all that's all the same. That's a Coast Guard.
And if you like most of your newer boats, like newer than the last 10 years, or 15 years, on your light switch, it'll actually have navigation and anchor on your light switch. It's one direction is navigation. That turns on your green and red and your white. And then when you anchor, you flip it down and that turns off the other two. Older boats didn't necessarily have that, but most of your newer ones
A lot of people coming down the river too and shining. There's a whole group of boats, holding on a spotlight on everybody.
throwables. Make sure that they're accessible.
Your throwables and life jackets need to be accessible, not accessible in a compartment. They need to be on the deck, on the back of a seat, inside of the bow netting, something you can grab them and go with them quickly. A lot of people have the older self-inflatable PFDs that you can buy. They're really nice to wear, but because of the Coast Guard changes, some of those older PFDs, they don't count as a personal flotation device in your boat unless you were wearing it. Once you take it off, it doesn't even count. It's like it doesn't even exist. So you have to look at the regulations. I don't remember which type they are, but look at the regulations and see. Because if we had this happened with the tournament series with the NWT Master Walleye circuit that I was running for the last 4 years, as guys were up in arms over, well, this is, if you wear it all day long and you never took it off, yes, that's perfectly fine. The safest way to do it is go to Walmart and buy the cheap orange ones that come over the top of your neck and over the top of your chest.
Strap them.
And strap them to the seats or put them into the bar cargo nets where you can get at them quickly. Otherwise, you're illegal with it.
Wasn't there Sam, a picture floating around with one of those orange one on? That the orange, didn't you put one of those on in the bait shop? Was that you or Joe did that? The guys were joking about, oh, those things are so outdated and all that, and all that. They're not. They're the best. You go on Lake Erie, all those guys, they have whole cases of those in their boat. That's the best, and it's the cheapest way, it's.
Well, it's like the big dumb ones. Those will actually, if you're knocked out, that will lift your head and get it up out of the water. If you just got a regular inflatable, it's gonna keep you up. But if you're knocked out unconscious,
Make recovery a lot easier.
right? It won't actually flip you over, but those ones that go around your neck, yeah, they're big and bulky, but they will actually keep your head above water.
Oh, voucher is another one that comes up.
Oh, and the other one too. You see people driving around at half throttle or at full speed, sitting in the front of their boat on the seat up in the front. That is illegal.
You gotta be below.
You would need to be below the gunnel and behind in the back. You can't have somebody sitting up front while you're underway, while your big motor's running, you're up on plane. You see it, people do it all the time when they're cruising around with ski boats and stuff. That is illegal. You're supposed to be in the back. It's supposed to be behind the driver, not in the bow of the boat and down below the gunnels. You can't be sitting on the sides of the gunnels. You can't be sitting up there. And
So
people,
for tiller guys,
filler guys,
the
you can't
seats that are right at the base of the bow from there back.
because you're down below the gunnels.
And if you have high gunnels like on your boat, the front, they can sit up there, but their butt has to be below gunnel.
Kurt does that. He stands up all the time.
On that, I'm looking at that post now that you were referencing. When you reach your limit of walleyes, when you take your third walleye into possession and you put it into your live well, you are done fishing for walleyes. You are not allowed to be catching and releasing for walleyes any longer for that day. You can take those fish, take your boat, go back on the trailer, go back, leave those fish in a cooler and go down below the Petenwell Dam or below the Castle Rock Dam or go above Nakusa and go catch 2 more for your state limit of 5. But you cannot have those fish with you and you can't keep catching and releasing that same species once you have taken that third fish into your possession.
How do you catch a limit of 3 though? That's been.
And I mean, the reason why that is because, yeah, you're intending to release them, right? But what if you take that fish deep, that 4th fish, and it's gonna die? You need to be able to take that into your
You
possession.
don't even have that option anymore at that.
Right.
All the DNR were watching the guy out here. And he was, putting 3 in there. And he was taking them out and putting bigger ones, keeping bigger ones, and they nailed him.
Yeah, you can't sort. You're not legally allowed to sort.
Calling.
It's
It's your live well, it's yours.
During the summer months, that is that's hard on fish because you've just taken them out of 73, 74 degree water temps. You put them in your live well that is now sucking the warmest water off the surface. So now your live well is probably well oxygenated. So those fish are alive in 80 degree water temps. If you release them, they're probably going to die. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm telling you if you do it now when the water's 33 degrees, they're probably going to be okay. It's still not legal to be doing that. Guys do it. You see tournament fishermen doing it. Guys pre-fishing. Guys trying to get pictures when they're holding 3 fish that are beautiful and alive, and they say they released everything at the end of the day. they still count towards your possession limit for the day, because you took them into your possession at one point. They still count for your 3 fish, but you can't take it and let those 3 go and then still go back fishing. You're not supposed to be doing that either. What was it?
I think the other one that's been coming up more this year is making sure who's fishing the live well.
I personally never had or law enforcement saying anything about.
Cause at least that warden last fall told me to say, okay, she's got, okay, so you're fishing with a couple and he caught 2 and she caught her limit, you know? So she was done fishing, but when he asked her, she's gotta say, okay, I got my 3, and then he's only got.
Or if you're fishing with 3 people in the boat and you have 8 fish in the live well, and there are only walleyes in the live well, and it's April 5th in Nakusa, don't tell the DNR that you're fishing for white bass. That the other 2 people are now fishing for white bass or crappies. He's gonna call your bullshit and he's gonna give you a fine for it. Because there isn't a crappie for probably 5 miles, there probably isn't a smallmouth, there is. Now, if you're catching a couple smallies and you're gonna keep them and you wanna do that and continue fishing for them, put it in live well, at least then you have a plausible excuse to tell the DNR that I'm fishing for smallies. Look, I have 2 of them in the live well. But if it's April 5th and you're in Nakusa and you're fishing by the islands, you're probably not gonna catch too many of them. So don't try to tell me we're fishing with depth raiders and medusas, musky lures, and try to tell them that you're fishing walleyes. If the person to the left of you and right of you on the shoreline and the other 6 boats that are in front of you are only catching walleyes and you're still catching walleyes, don't try to, you're fishing for muskies, don't buy them. You can't fish for fish for walleyes with musky gear out of season. The intent is there. You're not fishing for walleyes at that point.
Or they tell you, oh, Lake Erie, we could keep our captain's fish. This is, well, you're just saying Lake Erie, this is Wisconsin.
If I choose to give you that's my possession limit of fish.
Yeah, and it has to have a signed, written piece of paper that I gave Thomas my fish.
Supposed to do
Yeah,
that.
same thing with venison. If you give somebody venison, you're supposed to have a written document out and sign for it.
Do we all do that? If I give a couple of walleyes, we probably don't all do that. But I don't keep fish every day either. Even if we're catching that many of them, I'm gonna throw mine back. I'm waiting for everybody else in the boat to catch their own fish.
Any more general questions?
Do you guys have any video courses or anything to get better at reading the electronics? Or is it just go out there and?
My number is 715.
So there's so much YouTube stuff out there. There is.
I've done this a lot for a lot of people, and I'm not gonna take a full day off of guiding to do it, but if you have a boat and you have electronics on it, and every one of us will probably do it too, and you wanna learn how to read those electronics, get a hold of me, we'll set it up. I'll park my boat up by the thing at the boat launcher, come drop it off by Joe so it can be watched with all my gear in it, and I'll jump in your boat for a half hour, 45 minutes or an hour that night. We might not fish a whole lot, but we can dial it in. I can teach you what you're looking at, show you what you're looking at, and get you a little bit better. I'm not gonna spend 6 hours doing it, but a 45 minutes with me in the boat, teaching you how to read your Lowrance, Garmin, whatever it is, you're gonna be way better off.
Yeah, 6 to 8 hours to try to teach, for us to go out and try to teach you that, unless we're actually fishing.
Yeah.
That's 6 or 8 hours is a waste.
And I think a lot of people have, they buy the latest and greatest, but when you actually look at the number of people that can sit there and tell you everything that unit does from top to bottom is quite low.
And there's stuff that you will
Now,
not
there's
use.
nobody that can tell you that.
Right.
Watch a lot of Tom Bowley's videos. He's probably one of the big one on YouTube, but
Technological here's another really good one.
yeah. But when it comes, if you have problems and they call you call them, a lot of times they say, did you take it out of factories, out of their settings? Because a lot of times if you play with that, they're done with you right there. You gotta really, the way they come out of the box set, like what you did to mine, that's different stuff, your pixels and stuff like that, and doing different coloration stuff like that, but just leave it the way they set it and just play with that stuff on, coloring and stuff. You'll be able to figure out if that's what's down there, what you're really after, and the new days of electronics is insane.
And it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And
You buy something now, August, it's outdated.
Yeah.
They come out with a Gen 6 by then.
Just asking me about that.
So to answer the question, one, there's some YouTube stuff out there. If I had to pick one, for the hummingbird crowd, technological angler is probably gonna be your best resource. Jason's incredible. He does a really, really good job of breaking down the technological mumbo jumbo and making it very digestible.
Everything from mounting it to identifying weed species that you're looking at on there. The guy, he's really good. He's got posts up regularly online every day. He's very, very good at it.
Talking about if you are making changes to your settings, this is the type of changes that you should be making to match the water density,
Yes,
bottom hardness, bottom composition, things of that nature. Otherwise, it's butt and seat behind the windshield, looking, working your way through that graph.
if you wanna get really good with live scope, with forward facing sonar, not just live scope, but forward facing sonar, it's gonna cost a couple of bucks. Tom Wing, it's called Tom Wing University. He's one of the top anglers on the NWT. We talked to him before. I know the guy personally. He's a super good guy.
You can actually call them.
I could call him right now and say, hey, can you talk a little bit about this? And he would probably just sit there and give you a 20-minute thing about how to use your live scope. He's that kind of a guy. But he started this online university. It costs a couple of bucks. It is worth every cent, especially if you don't have a ton of time, a lot of time to put that button seat, you only get a couple of times a month to be out there. You'll learn more by going through his seminar, and he does it. It's like taking a college course online. You watch those seminars and you watch him talk about specific things and really break down each individual little thing on there. You'll become a live scope forward facing sonar pro in a matter of a month. You'd be able to outfish me with it out here on this lake. It's worth every penny you'd spend on doing that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, so if any of you might be wondering who I am, my name is Dan Philbrick, and I run a channel on YouTube called Midwest Angling. And most of my content I film right out here at this lake. Now I work like 70 hours a week, so the amount of time I can actually get out there and do it is kind of limited, but I get out there when I can. And the thing that I wanted to talk about is, you can kind of see in the center of the room what I have going on that's putting all this out into the airwaves today. And it's really not that complicated. I mean, the one thing I guarantee just about everybody in this room has in their pocket. It's an iPhone, right? A cell phone. What you can make like a TV quality production off that little box that's in your pocket now. Like the cameras on these phones are so good. And let me ask you something. I mean, how many of you have a picture of the biggest walleye you've ever caught? Right? Like most of the time you don't have somebody with you, or you don't have a really good camera or whatever. It's really easy to be able to get that kind of a memory and preserve it. And all you need is a cell phone, or I'm gonna reach into my little bag of tricks here. Yeah.
I asked Dan to talk about this. We were talking about it yesterday. I asked him to talk about this because it's getting to be more and more popular that people are using, trying to document their catches and everything. And Dan, probably more than people in this room, knows how this works and how to do this. We've set up my boat, and it's pretty cool.
I mean, it's crazy what you can do now with very little investment. So this right here, this is a GoPro. It's not even like the most recent one. This model is like 4 years old at this point. But everything I do to put on the internet, and I make a little bit of money at it each month from doing so, I do off of these little cameras. And you can buy this camera on Amazon right now, brand new in the package, for $250. I mean, how many of you have a rod and reel combo that's worth more than $250? Okay. And what I do, so I get grief sometimes. I don't know if you noticed, but I got this little bolt in my hat, right? There's a reason for that. Because this mount, I can screw this right on here. Okay. I know cameos are usually the one that gets me, but
Nice.
everything I look at, and this is running. Everything I look at, if I see it, it's in the frame. Okay. So when I'm on the boat, the biggest walleye I've ever caught, not only do I have pictures of it, I have on video every moment from when I cast that jig out. You can see the rod tip go, set the hook in the boat, up to the camera, back in the water. Every single bit. And it's on my channel for everybody to see. I mean, it'd be hard. But, you know, the point is that this stuff, it seems really complicated, but it's actually really simple. And you don't have to go and say, oh, I'm going to be a big time YouTube star. Okay. With a little bit of investment, you can do this. And how cool would it be to say, you know, to be able to show your descendants a long time from now, like this was grandpa when I was a kid or whatever, a long time ago. This is what he sounded.
This world is
what he-
for the guys.
This is this is what he loved to do. This is your great grandfather. You know what I mean? Doing the thing that he loved to do. Like my grandfather died in 1973. I don't know what he sounded like. I'm never going to know that, right? Because he died when my father was a kid. But my grandchildren will be able to see and say, hey, that was him when he was 30 years old. He's with Bolt.
The Christmas. The Terminator.
So when you, if you decide that you want to do this, okay, there's a really, really easy way to do it. And I mean, just about, I'm gonna assume everybody here is fishing out of a boat, right? For the most part. The back port side corner of your boat, if you angle this camera in the right spot, you can catch everything that happens in the entire boat. Around it, you can catch, if it's on the port side of the boat, you can even catch the walleye coming out of the water. And this camera will run all day. If you look on my setup on the table there, I've got 2 power packs. Those were $10 at Walmart. All right. They come with a cable. These take the same charging cable as your cell phone. You can run that for 8 hours and record straight. You have everything that you do from sun up to sundown. And yeah, most of it you're going to throw away. Right. But maybe there's that off chance that you'll catch the biggest fish you caught in your entire life. You'll be able to have that to share with all your friends and family. And
They do. It's Thomas's wife's fault.
and another key thing, even if you're not filming video, right? There's a couple things to take into consideration when you do catch a big fish. And a big one is, like, if you want to get a really nice picture of it, okay? The big thing is the giant orange ball in the sky. Where is that? Because if it's behind you, okay, this is the type of stuff that I never thought about before I started filming. If the sun's behind you, you're going to be like black and everything around you is going to be blown out. And it's not going to be a very good picture. So next time that you're holding up a fish for somebody to take a picture of you, make sure that you're facing the sun. And that's going to get you properly lit for a really good picture. And another thing that filming your catches is going to do is when you catch that really big fish, if you want to get like really nice reproduction done, you're going to have more time where you can get that fish to that camera. Okay, that artist is going to be able to get a lot more detail with your replica. They're going to be able to get a lot better figures of the dimensions of the fish. Okay, and it's just going to be, it's going to give you a lot more to work with. So on that note, I am being looked at for time.
Do the raffle.
We got to do the raffle.
don't know where he went. Where's Junior?
Any questions on like cameras or filming or anything? Any at all?
Six of them.
Alright. Alright, we've got. Don't you guys wanna give me a hand? It's always best to have both guys.
Were you an
We can blame it on you. Grab a number out of there, hand it to me. We got 3 adults. Only prizes here, just. It'll be choice, and then there's 6 t-shirts over there. Number 33. Ron Nickel. Right.
I'd take that entire box of jigs right there.
All right, next one, number 19. It's you.
Bottle of booze.
Later. You can't, this is over 21.
Got the baits.
I don't know that.
That'll get that bigger bass.
45 Kendra.
Good one, sorry. That's a good one.
You're the one, that's a really hard call.
Want to grab another one? 26 Jesse Beacon.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
You're definitely not getting the booze.
What do I gotta choose?
either them 2 or the t-shirts. Yeah. This, the bucket's got booze in it.
Oh.
And it's sleep.
All right, yeah.
These are actually.
Are you leaving on?
I don't.
39. Ron Stevenson. Ron Stevenson. Two. John Gavin. Give me another one, please. Number 4. Michael Furlings.
Booze. Or we got t-shirts left.
Joe's favorites.
18. Dan Heyman.
Oh, that's me. You can pick some.
That's a bucket full of fat heads.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's.
We got 3 left there, 2 there.
4.
4. Number 11. Maynard Ostrowski.
Nice.
Yeah.
The t-shirt.
Or t-shirt.
17. Jason Shedd.
Rolls over.
15. Leland Elliott.
Redraw.
We'll get mad at you if you do that.
All right, 1 left. Number 21, Nikita Holman. Holman? All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Alright, thank everybody here for coming. Definitely, big thank you to Kelly and her staff for letting us use her facility. Thank these guys for taking time out of their busy lives to get this done. Hopefully, we'll see you this spring.
And then, if you want, like, this will all be available in its entirety on YouTube. There's a little flyer up at the front here with a QR code. You just hold the camera on your phone up to it, and then you can click on it. And then you'll be able to find, if you ever need to come back to these for reference, I'm gonna take the individual subjects and kind of polish them down. And just edit them into a more like shorter, concise episode that you can go for references on any of the topics that we discussed. So thank you all for coming.
Two, any of the St. Croix rods that are in stock at the store are $20 off today and $25 on the counter. Damn good.
You're kind of like a client that's you're sitting there, like, okay, sending to law.
Numb, huh? At least you don't have to see like that's. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.